All right. Jim, you ready? 9:03, we're back in the session. We're on item G2, a resolution imposing conditions or restrictions for the approval of special use for the meat processing facility use upon a property located at the southwest corner of the intersection of West Loomis Road and the new Monarch Drive. We know it as Lot 83 of Ryan Meadows subdivision. Strauss Brands LLC is the applicant. Mr. Eddy, you have information on this application.
Yes, the property is located in the overhead, as you can see there. Mr. Mills previously discussed this property in relationship to the rest of the industrial park and the residential development to the east. This is the proposed development, looking slightly differently. The north is to your right. This is the proposed development, 152,035 square feet of building with 280 parking spaces, 2 entrances right off of Monarch Drive. There are 3 proposed stormwater ponds on the property. Those are stormwater ponds. There for anything else. Only water that contacts them will be on the outside. No, I can do it from here. And proposed future building expansion going forward. This is a rendering of the property as proposed. The operation occurs from left to right. Cattle trucks arrive on the south side of the property, back all the way into the building. The building is closed, so you never hear any of the cattle. The only thing you're going to hear is the beep, beep, beeping of the trucks as they back up. They empty the trucks into the holding pen, and then they're processed on the inside of the building. Everything goes through the process from the start, including the butchering and then the preparing of the final products, which are then loaded on the right-hand side at the loading docks. The waste is also collected on the south side of the building, as you can see on the other side. Again, the truck pulls all the way into the back of the building and the doors are closed so that nothing occurs outside the building. Everything that occurs in this property is enclosed. The sewer system is connected to the MMSD sewer, regional sewer. Water will be connected to the City of Franklin Oak Creek water system. Nothing occurs outside the building except stormwater, which is generated by the impervious coverages that you see here. Again, this is another view. Again, north is now faced upward. There are a couple of wetland areas which are depicted, one on the northwest corner there, one on the near northwest side of the property. Those are protected. Those buffers are depicted, and nothing will be conducted inside those buffers. The property will be developed as such. They also propose expansion areas which will be covered in a later approval down the road. And this is the south end. You see another wetland area in the southwest corner. That one also is protected, will not be impacted at all. The landscape buffer as proposed is in compliance with the UDO standard requirement. It should be noted also that the property immediately west of here has a wetland protected under the UDO standard for natural resources protections. So there is additional buffering in addition to that which is proposed for planting on this property. There is in addition going to be a landscape berm provided along the north side of the property adjacent to Loomis Road, 6-foot high berm landscaped to essentially provide a visual barrier from the parked vehicles, which are mostly going to be trucks along the north side.
North is on the right on this drawing.
Yes. Yes, thank you. This shows more of the landscaping design on the property as proposed. And this is the front of the building facing, this is the office side facing for employees' entrance. This is the gated entrance for trucks and other delivery and freight vehicles entering and leaving the facility. The dock on the right side, you see the door there, that giant door. That's where the trucks back into the building to deliver cattle. And then on the other side, you see all those dock areas there. That is for trucks to pick up waste and transport it out. Another view of the dock. or the area, the gate. This is a view of the property from Loomis Road, facing into Monarch Drive, looking south into the property. The docks you see there are the finished products docks where trucks would pick up finished products for delivery. This is another view facing toward the northeast from the back side of the property. The green area is eventual expansion, or as proposed. The docks for delivery are located on the south side on the right. And another rendering further back from the original drawing. There are a couple of masonry walls on the front side. Those are either to protect from door appearances on the south side or along the north side here for the generators that are proposed to be included as the backup electrical system. And another close-up view of the backside on the south dock area. And the holding pen is that area located entirely inside there on the, entirely in the area there. That's it right there. And another view from the front. Staff evaluated this project based on the information provided as well as the available information of the existing infrastructure and services at the city. It's interesting that we brought up the water tower. The water tower has actually been a project that's been in the works for over 10 years now, my understanding. That it's closing tonight is kind of just weird happenstance, but it wasn't something that was related to this project. With regard to the evaluation of standards for special uses, staff evaluated this and determined that the impacts that they would have are manageable within the context of the ordinance itself. That they have high quantity of ammonia on site is natural for any kind of system that employs refrigeration with chemicals, and they're not uncommon for industrial operations. The odor can be managed with the existing systems. These are systems that are also not unfamiliar to the existing operation itself. They know how to do this, so it's not new for them. So with that, staff recommended approval to the Plan Commission for both the special use and the site plan. The Plan Commission, following 2 hours of comments provided by the public, including 58 comments, asked a series of questions of the applicant and discussed issues included in the public comments, and at their discretion voted to recommend approval to the Common Council for the special use with 20 conditions of approval that are incorporated in the resolution for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Addy. At that Plan Commission hearing, several of us took notes. I took my own notes. I gave my notes, which probably include some 30 questions and issues. I gave them to the applicant. The presentation that I believe we're going to see this evening from the applicant addresses, I would imagine, all of them. I understand that Alderman Nelson has given them a separate list of questions and issues that are also going to be addressed this evening. I'm certain that there's probably other questions that have been given to them by the other aldermen and potentially staff. I know that they as well have taken notes and listened intently to the comments from the people here this evening, as well as at the Plan Commission. The common narrative is we're not listening. That's really not true. It's absolutely not true. There is also a narrative that says if you don't vote the way we want you to vote, you're not voting with the majority. That's a trap that elected officials sometimes fall in. If you're not voting the way the people around you say you should be voting, that's not always the case. It's typically you're not talking to a lot of people. So There are 36,000 people in this city. There are perhaps 150 here today. And so we have to listen to everybody. And we listen to you. So with that, we have Randy Strauss, who is the CEO, truly the CEO of Strauss Brands. We have Don Olson, who is with ESI, the architectural firm. We have Jack Price, who is the operations VP for Strauss. And Jerry Bussin, who is the president of Strauss and chief operating officer, right? I'm destined to make those mistakes.
You named them off, but they didn't
Sorry.
raise their hand. So I-
Jack, Jerry, Randy, and Don. So with that, I turn it over to Mr. Strauss.
Thank you. Mayor, aldermen, residents of Franklin, these last few weeks have been difficult for all of us. Between these meetings, the fear of the unknown, everyone wants to know what's going on, what's happening in my community. Why is there a processing facility being built in my backyard? What about the smells? What about the traffic? And we hear your voice. We hear the voices of all the people that have come before this committee tonight and 2 weeks ago and at our town hall meeting last week. We have answers to your questions. And hopefully they'll give you some peace of mind that the project we're presenting here is a good project and it's a great project for this community. I want to thank all of you for being here tonight and again for going to the meeting, our town hall meeting, those that have driven by our plant, those that have gotten to know us, those that have called to ask the tough questions. Many of you have toured our facility and I appreciate all that. This month has obviously been difficult for me personally because I take a lot of pride in what we do. I've always tried to run our company with the highest levels of moral integrity. And I think it's kind of important right now that I share with you who we are as a company and where we've come from. I'm going to take you down a little bit of the history, but I'm going to go fast, so please bear with me. 1937, our company was started. At that time, animals were raised in pastures. That's just how it was done. We're going to cut to post-World War II, and there's a tremendous demand placed on food and meat and agriculture. And at that time, farmers decided that they were going to mass produce livestock. This is what they came up with. They're going to be able to mass produce livestock with limited amounts of labor. And they didn't take in consideration that these animals were sentient beings and that these animals deserved respect. No different than Henry Ford did with the assembly line of production. This was an assembly line for meat. And it allowed a family farm with a husband and a wife and a couple kids to mass produce livestock with a limited amount of labor. So a family can raise hundreds and hundreds of animals, but there was a catch to it. They raised these animals in confinement, and they raised them indoors, and they didn't give these animals rights, and they could basically barely just stand up and lie down, and many of them had chains around their necks. They called this industrialized agriculture. Others called it factory farming. I called it animal abuse. 1987, I started working for our family's business. At that time, my grandfather and my dad had tried to improve the welfare of our animals, but they were met with a tremendous amount of resistance. They did their best. When I started working for the family business, I was reluctant to be a part of it because of what we did, because I didn't feel good about it. I didn't feel good that we were a part of an industry that was not respecting the rights of the animals. In 1989, my dad retired, and it was my business to make a change. And that was my one goal, make a change. Make a positive impact, leave a legacy for our family that I can be proud of. So we did the best that we could to try to understand how we can raise animals We did the best we could to try to understand how to raise livestock with the highest levels of animal welfare. Do you want me to wait? No, please. Okay. So in 2000, in the mid-2000s, like 2005, I made it my personal goal to improve the welfare of our animals, and I traveled around the world. I went to England, I went to France, I went to Italy, I went to the Netherlands, specifically Holland. I went to Australia, and I studied systems. I studied the best systems in the world. The ones that regarded the animal at the highest level of animal welfare. And I brought the best of those systems back home. At that time, our industry was still reluctant to change. It was roughly 2008. I demanded that our company made immediate change, and within 6 months of coming back, we converted to 100% humanely raised products. Our industry was livid, to say the least. I got a lot of threatening messages to retract statements that I made to animal welfare groups. I used the term inhumane and archaic to describe the way systems were and had been. And our industry was so distraught with my words, they begged me to retract them. I wouldn't. Animal welfare groups, and I know there's a lot of them represented here tonight, and I just want to say something about that. I respect their opinion. I do. I respect their beliefs. These animals are making the ultimate sacrifice for human consumption. It's the circle of life. But currently, people eat meat. And if they're going to eat meat, I want to provide it to them with the highest levels of animal welfare. And that's just who we are as a company. That's what we do. So people can say all these terrible things about slaughterhouses and that we're harming animals, but that's the farthest thing from the truth. Throughout the beginning of this process, our industry tried to distance themselves from our company, and we certainly distanced ourselves from the other companies within our industry. We immediately, as I mentioned, in 2008, converted within 6 months. Our industry made a statement that they would be converted in 10 years. 2018, they gave themselves to do something that only took us 6 months. And you know why they did that? Money, greed. We lost millions of dollars by doing the right thing. Millions of dollars were left on the table while our competition was making millions of dollars. I can tell you there were times in certain years where I begged the banks to let us run to the end of the year just to see if we can somehow piece this thing together, because we didn't want to go backwards. We became known as leaders in ethical agriculture, doing it right. People began to pay attention. People knew that it was possible. We decided that not only did we want to improve the welfare of the animals that we were already producing, but there needed to be a better system for some of these animals. So at that time, there was no such thing as pasture-raised veal. And we tried for about 2 months to get that approved by the United States Department of Agriculture. It was a definition that didn't exist. And we tried, and finally, we were told by the USDA, no, veal must be raised in confinement in the systems that are currently available, and you're going to have to call this a different name. It's not going to be allowed to be called veal. Well, needless to say, I got a little angry. I got the ears of the top people at the United States Department of Agriculture, and personally, after a 4-hour heated exchange, we were able to define pasture-raised veal with the United States Department of Agriculture. That didn't exist before. We were the only ones that were brave enough to stand up and get that done. Again, that led us to be known, again, throughout the industry, between chefs and consumers and cruise ships, that we were doing the things the way they were supposed to be done. And that's how we got into grass-fed beef. Beef is another broken system in this country. Beef, the way most people eat it today, are raised in feedlots. Feedlots are industrialized agriculture. I'm not cool with that. So we were determined to bring back beef the way it's supposed to be raised. That means outdoors, no hormones, no antibiotics. The only confinement is literally the stars above. And yep, I get it. These animals are making the ultimate sacrifice. So we owe it to them to treat them with the dignity they deserve. And that goes within our facility as well. In our facility, we have signs all over our plant so that everyone that works in our building understands that we're not working with widgets, that we're working with animals. And the signs read, we treat our animals with dignity and respect, for they are making the ultimate sacrifice. I say again, as long as people are going to eat meat, we're trying to provide meat that has ethical standards behind it. All right, I'm going to just talk for a moment because some questions have been raised about who owns Strauss. As we continue to grow, we have outgrown our current facility. We've talked about that a lot in these meetings. We need a new facility. Our facility has been, bandaged and band-aided and added on to over the almost 50 years of being there, and it's time for a new state-of-the-art facility to take us to the next generation. So we needed growth capital. Unfortunately, our family could not afford to take it to the next level. So reluctantly, we went out on the market and we found partners. And they've provided us with growth capital. And they, yes, are out of Texas, and they let us manage our business. I'm the CEO, Jerry's the president, Jack's the COO. We run the business. We report to Insight, but they are a hands-off owner, and my brother and I still have significant ownership in the company. It's my single biggest investment. It's my passion. My son works for our family's business. He manages our barn. He loves what he does. He's proud to be part of our family's fourth generation in our business. I'll leave you with this. If history is a good indicator for the future, we'll manage our new facility as we've done with our old, without incident. We didn't have an incident. I mean, we've looked, people have searched, everyone's digging around. What did Strauss do wrong? The question has been brought up over and over again. Well, they're not even doing in the old facility what they're going to be doing in the new. That's simply not true. We've been slaughtering animals since 1972. We do want to continue to be a part of Franklin. It's our home, just like it's the home of so many that have shown up to express their concerns. We have the answers tonight. We're going to go into depth. If you have any more questions, please feel free to answer them. We hope you'll be proud to have us in your community.
So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Common Council. Thanks, Randy. So as Randy noted, we are leaders in the implementation of ethical, humane, and sustainable agriculture. And that's one of the reasons that we serve many grocers and restaurants in the area, because they know us to be the best in the industry. And I do want to note that we support over 50 farms and ranches in the state, many of which we converted from old raising practices where they may have been in a feedlot system, and we convinced them that they should be pasture raised, pasture finished, and that's one of our number one goals in the industry, is to slowly change. We won't get all the United States, but it'd be great to have a higher percentage than just a few percentage points for beef.
Mr. Bussin? This is Jerry Bussin, President.
Oh, sorry, I'm Jerry Bussin, President of Strauss. So I want to get a bit into the project. There's been a lot of questions in relation to job creation. I do want to note that we currently have roughly 150 jobs in our existing facility. The plan with this expansion is to add 110 by the end of 2022. And then with our growth plans through 2025, we're going to add 160 total. So that would bring the job counts in the new facility to 310. I want to note that the average income of these employees is expected to be $54,000 annually, plus a very strong benefit package. And this average is in line with what you see across the industry. And I would argue that these are family supporting jobs. And as you can see on the slide, some of the jobs include skilled production line leaders, skilled craftsmen, and the butcher and meat cutting trades. Guys are operating meat cutters, saws, they're trimming on boning lines. We have technicians that work in our QA department. We have certified journeyman maintenance crew, skilled machine operators, and then also our shipping and receiving team. And I also want to note, it's been brought up that, many employees don't live in Franklin. Well, you don't necessarily have to be a Franklin resident to have an impact on the economy. So if we have 310 total employees at the site, they shop here locally on their way home. They fuel at convenience stores. They go to convenience stores. They stop at the Hideaway for a beer before they go home. So they're spending money and definitely having an economic impact in the area. And in addition to the 160 total jobs that we'll create that will be union jobs, it's expected that we're going to have at least 5 additional employees in plant management. These jobs are expected to pay anywhere from $100,000 to $175,000 a year. They'll be in professional and administrative roles throughout the company. So currently we have approximately 90 professionals within the organization that cover the areas on the slide: so sales, customer service, finance and accounting, IT, supply chain, production, logistics management, and administrative support. One of our goals with this new facility, and we've started the process already, is we've started working with the Franklin school system. I know that they are starting an internship program. Our goal in the areas of finance, marketing, supply chain is we will pull those students to do internships as we grow, because we definitely have a need for that. And it's likely we may pull from Muskego as well. I know it's not Franklin, but we need a lot of interns, and we'll pull as many students as we can. So total budget for the project is $73 million. $61 million of this is for building infrastructure, and then estimated $12 million for equipment. We do have a Wisconsin-based contractor designing and providing oversight of the construction. And I do want to note a significant amount of the trades is going to be from the southeastern Wisconsin region. So that includes site work, asphalt, utilities, concrete, plumbing, office finishes, fire protection, HVAC, and electrical. Before we go to the traffic plan, I do want to answer some specific questions that were sent to me by a few aldermen, alderwomen. I do appreciate those. It may cover some of the odor issues and other areas that Don will provide specific details to, but I do want to provide the answers that we provided directly to constituents and the Common Council. So there's been a lot of questions in regards to water pollution. I do want to note that, as most of you know, we've been working with MMSD for well over 12 months. Right at the start of the project, we said, hey, we're gonna use more water potentially. We may want to look at pretreatment. Don's team reached out to MMSD, and we immediately started designing a pretreatment plant. So that pretreatment component of our facility will treat the water to ensure that it is not it's not providing additional contaminants to MMSD, where they will provide the final treatment, and then they'll put it into its final destination, which is Lake Michigan. I do want to note that our new numbers versus the old facility will be significantly reduced, because in our current facility, we do not have a wastewater treatment system. There's been questions that have arisen from, green gas emissions, electricity use, et cetera. Again, I want to note this is going to be a new state-of-the-art facility. We actually engaged McKinstry, which is one of their specialties is energy conservation. So where available, we are going to put in LED lighting. We'll put in motor controls to ensure that we're not operating them 24/7, start stop, just to ensure that we're conserving water and electricity. There's a question brought about trucks. So our truck traffic is going to be very similar to our existing facility. So our existing facility was designed to handle, 3,500 to 4,000 veal calves a week. And we, at times, will bring up upwards of 500 head a day in present day terms. So that converts to 6 trucks a day. When we initially start up this new facility, we will bring in 6 trucks a day. And I know that there's been concerns that individuals don't want to see livestock going down the road. Well, we've been hauling 6 to 12 trucks a day, depending on the decade, for the past 50 years, and most people weren't aware. It's because we do it in the wee hours of the morning. We're very good at ensuring that our truck drivers, don't make additional noise. They're not using their transmission to brake, which you'll hear a lot on the highway. So we've done a great job of not being known that we're here. And then in regards to odor, I want to note that I live within a few miles of this development.
Mr. Buston, since we're talking about trucks, we hear a lot about, how do I delicately put this? The cattle remnants from the trucks on the roadway.
Yeah, I know that was a concern, but I've never heard of that being an issue. If it was an issue, I would imagine we would have had a complaint about it with the amount of trucks that we bring in today. Jack, I don't know if you have any additional color on.
Yeah, the, per USDA requirements, the trucks are adequately bedded with sawdust and straw. So when you talk about any kind of urine or feces, it's all going to be absorbed in the straw and the bedding, so you don't have a truck that's running down the road like leaking.
Wasn't my question, it was a question of constituents.
Yeah, yeah. And then in regards to odor, like I said, I live within a few miles of the development, so an odor is also a big personal concern of mine. It's something that I brought up when we started initially designing the building. I do apologize, there was a bit of confusion when ozone was brought up. It didn't seem like ESI and Strauss was on the same page. I think it's because they were going down a different route to install air scrubbers and felt that that would be adequate for odor mitigation. We went back to the drawing table and said, no, that's not going to be enough. We need to put the air scrubbers in the pre-treatment room. We need to look at all exhaust fans that could potentially vent air that has an obnoxious odor, and we're gonna install ozone systems on those fans to eliminate 99% plus of the odors being emitted. And then back to the concern of property values. I understand the concern, but I also don't get how it's a concern. We've operated a facility in the middle of the city, or operated a facility in the middle of the city for 50 years, doing upwards of 3,500 to 4,000 calves a week, and it's never impacted anyone's property values. And I think we've done a really good job of not being known, and I feel that we're going to do exactly the same thing in our new facility, and if history is a good indicator of the future, we're not going to have an impact. So at our peak, we would do 3,500 to 4,000 a week.
A day, 7, divided by 7. Because you said 500 head a day?
So those are current numbers.
Okay.
So if you go back to the 70s and 80s, where it was primarily just veal and the industry was a bit different, we didn't have to utilize our building for as much processing. We just harvested, cut them into 8 pieces and sent them on. As the industry has changed, we've decreased our numbers over time. The last item I want to address before I pass it to Don is the concerns of COVID and health and safety at our facility. We really have, we pride ourselves on being leaders in our industry. We pride ourselves on being leaders in health and safety of our employees. It's one of our core values that, we want you to be safe at work, we want you to be healthy at home, we want you to be healthy at work, et cetera. And I think this mentality is one of the reasons that our COVID rate was 3 to 4%, while the rest of the industry was 50 to 90%. Most meat plants in the United States, they had to shut down for a month or 2 months. And I think one of the reasons that they had to do that is they tried to fight through it. They would have an outbreak and just quarantine a small group of people and then keep chugging along. And it wasn't enough. We were a bit different in our approach, which we were one of the first businesses in Franklin to have a COVID action plan, to the point that we actually shared it with the Franklin Business Consortium, say, here's what we're doing, and we believe we're going above and beyond what the CDC guidelines tells us to do, because we don't want our employees to get sick. We need them to be healthy. We need to get our product out the door. Where's I going with that? So how we got ahead of that is we had the belief that we had a positive. We didn't receive a notification from the Franklin Health Department. We just had an employee call us and say, hey, I was tested. I'm not feeling well. I think I may test positive. So Jack, Randy, myself, and some other members of the executive team, we met Thursday night. We said, hey, what should we do? And we discussed for multiple hours, probably till 10 p.m., what should we do? We shut down our plant. Didn't have a positive. We said, let's shut down our plant for at least the weekend. We'll have our employees stay home if they want. We'll pay them for at least a week. If they want to come in, they can. But let's work through the weekend and decide how we're going to handle this. Let's not try to push people in to work. We'll call our customers, let them know we're going to short them. There's no product coming to them. And fortunately, half our workforce showed up that Monday, which was really surprising. And we maintained 50% of our workforce for 2 weeks, which was great because it actually gave us time to breathe and really develop our plan fully before we completely implemented. And then for several weeks after that, even after we brought back our workforce, we did staggered shifts. We ramped down to 50% of production just to ensure that we provide a safe workforce. That leads me to the terminations that we had to do, unfortunately. It wasn't due to COVID retaliation. It's absolutely false. Really, by law, unfortunately, we had to terminate these employees. We had no choice. And we would gladly hire them back. It was 31 of our best employees, and it really put us in a pinch. And we're still in a pinch. So much so that Jack and I were actually on the production line last weekend working the line, packing boxes and loading meat because we don't want to short our customers. That's how passionate we are about our business. So for now, that's all I have to cover until questions. So Don, if you want to dive into the details.
Well, before Don does that, any questions for Mr. Bussin, Executive Management? Alderman Dandridge.
Jerry, I had a chance to go through the facility with you and Jim. Jerry, why don't you just let the people know your background and how many years you've been with Strauss, and the certain jobs that you've held at that facility that you just didn't get there yesterday.
So I've been roughly employed at Strauss for 7.5 years. I started employment in 2013 as the corporate controller. I believe it was 6 months later, I moved into an executive director of finance role. And then shortly after that, I moved into the role of CFO. I held that position for roughly 7 years. And in February, after Insight had held the company for roughly 7 months at that point, it was decided that I would assume the role of president.
Okay, Thank you. And I also want to let the public know, I did go through the facility, and went through a large majority of the facility. There was not an odor permeating from that facility. You've also got to understand that inside this facility, core temperature it's got to be in the 30s, because I know I had coat and gloves on and it was still cold.
That's cool.
So when the temperature is that low, an odor isn't necessarily going to resonate when the temperature is that cold. Is that a true assumption?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say it's no different than a refrigerator at your house, right? If you have
Correct.
food that spoils and doesn't smell great, you only smell it if you open the
Correct.
refrigerator door.
Okay,
So I would say refrigeration is definitely one form of odor mitigation.
correct. Okay, thank you.
Before Jack does his thing, there was some comment about, yes, you're next. Some comment about violence, which I really take offense to when people talk about people in my community being violent and have no basis for that. So, being a resourceful guy, I asked for the police report for the last 10 years. The net is essentially, it's here, hold on. Lots of reports. Here it is. You guys may be interested in this. Other than blackouts, routine stuff, anything that would need a police officer to do something other than traffic ticket or something like that, over the last 10 years, there's been 8 police-related matters. 14 ambulance calls, and 20, Chief, this is what I was asking you about, 20 miscellaneous fire calls, whatever those mean. And
My comment, or?
were you able?
Actually, our records management database goes back to January 1st, 1999. I was able to pull up a number of incidents, things like alarms going off, basic things like that. I did not find one ammonia incident. I did not find one fire incident. I did not find one industrial accident,
So just to repeat for what the chief is saying that nobody can hear, did not find one fire, no ammonia accidents, nothing of record that was worth worrying about. Alderman Wilhelm.
Are they using ammonia now?
Yes. I can say that because I took the tour. So did Alderman Dandria. It's all over the place.
Okay.
And it's similar, just a slightly less quantity, right? You have about 10,000 pounds, as I recall the discussion at the Plan Commission.
Yeah, I believe it's about half the quantity, yes.
Okay, Alderman Hanneman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also was given opportunity to tour the plant, and I was amazed at what all they're able to do within that small space. And I would agree with Alderman Dandria. The odor was literally no different than when I would go to the meat counter at my local Sendik's. What you see happening in there is very much what you see happening behind the door at the meat counter. Those are the same types of workers, the same union representing them. They are meat cutters. It is a skilled trade. Maybe not tasteful to everybody, but it is legal employment, for lack of a better word. One of the questions I do have that I posed when I had the tour, and that maybe could dispel some misconceptions. I think people are very worried about truckloads of the waste that you aren't using as part of your finished product, a la the bones or the pieces of meat that are not being sent to the retail or the restaurant marketplace. So can you tell us what happens to that excess waste or unusable product that isn't going into your product.
So I do want to note that we generate very little waste. We feel that, as Randy would say, that the animal is making the ultimate sacrifice, so we don't want to let anything go to waste. So all of the byproducts from the dressing procedure are collected and frozen and packed off and sold. The hides are sold. For veal calves, we actually collect the blood, and that is sold to a like pharmaceutical type company that uses it for a serum that later goes into animal vaccines. So really the only thing that's generated that's waste is the rendering. So it's all of the material around organ meat that goes into a rendering tank that will be in an enclosed area in the facility that will be refrigerated. And then periodically throughout the week, when it fills up, then we'll dispatch a company that we sell it to come pick it up. That facility is a few hours north, and that is a rendering processing facility that it goes to, and they process it into numerous products.
Alderman Bartles.
Can you hear me? One of the things I want to do is thank you personally for taking my constituents seriously, as I have received many, many calls, complaints, emails. I want to just let you know that the questions that were raised, I passed on to you, I passed on to your team, and I've gotten solid answers from them. They took it seriously, you took it as a group very seriously and tried to answer them, and I appreciate your candor and honesty in doing that. In fact, I've shared them with my constituents again as I received them back from you, and I have not received any negative response on those answers. In fact, I've received thank yous for at least the fact that the questions were brought to you and you've answered them. So there's an appreciation for that. One of the things I don't have an answer for is the traffic. I have a concern about traffic yet. Does it have to start at 1 o'clock? And you know, what control do you exercise over the drivers? Are they independent drivers? Are they your drivers? How does that play out on the roadways? And I understand your philosophy and I understand your desire, but truck drivers are still historically agreed unto themselves, let's put it that way. So my concern is, what exercise do you have over that? And can you change the hours to make it less than 1 o'clock or 1 a.m. to start the process of delivery?
So the reason for 1 a.m. is to mimic our current hours of delivery, and the reason we do that is we want the animals have to rest for 2 hours upon delivery. We can't do anything until they rest for that period of time. And our goal is to have the scheduled deliveries for the day finished early in the morning. So they're really not seen. If we were to push back the hours, then it would just, then we would have animals being delivered at 2, 3 p.m. in the afternoon, which would align with bus routes, et cetera. And, just like everyone else has concerns, we have concerns as well. So we schedule in a way that we try to have the least amount of impact and the least amount of visibility. And so that's for livestock trucks. For everything that's outbound, we actually own our own logistics entity that is domiciled in Waukesha. So we have a cold storage facility there that we operate. So what we will do is we will fill a truckload quantity at a time as we produce throughout the day. And then that's going to get shipped to our DC in Waukesha, where it will be distributed from there. So our truck traffic at this new facility for the first 3 years is really going to mimic what we already do currently out of the business park. Because the big driver is we need additional space so we can bring in additional equipment and have higher throughput on the processing side when it comes to making patties and bricks of hamburger and meatloaf, et cetera. And then in addition, we need a larger building for cattle. Cattle are twice the size of veal calves, and our goal is we're going to slowly do less veal calves to the point that we may do 0, and then we'll replace that volume with beef. So that the volume going out the door for the first 2 to 3 years is going to be exactly the same. So truck traffic won't, like, the traffic impact is nearly 0 for the first 2 to 3 years. It's just our pattern changes. So instead of going to Ryan Road up to 94, we're now going to take Loomis to different highways to go to our customers. But the number of trucks will be relatively the same.
I just want to add, can I have one more thing on the reason 1 o'clock in the morning? So when we're picking up cattle are coming in, we're scheduling the cattle to arrive. So when the cattle arrive, we don't want them to just sit on, it's really a humane welfare issue. We don't want them to have to sit on the trailer for an extra 2 or 3 or 4 hours because they're ahead of their schedule. So there's reasons where maybe there's weather, so they need to come in a little earlier. Maybe there's breakdowns, there's just lots of different things that pretty much when the animals are arriving, we try to schedule them as tight as possible. That we just really want to get them off the trailer because from a humane welfare standpoint, it's
And who are the drivers on the delivery side?
so we contract all of our own drivers. They're not, so Jerry talked about having a logistics company that's on the outbound freight and the refrigerated freight. We do not do that with the livestock, but we do contract and we know all of our drivers. So it's a third party.
Alderman Wilhelm and then Alderman Dandria. And then let's get back to but I want to have your questions answered, but I want to make sure that the constituents' questions get answered too.
Well, Mayor, I just want to make sure that I understand what process we're going to head from this point on. Will the council members be able to make their own statements and conclusions, or are we going to continue on with only question and answers? Or how will, because I'm not sure at what point I'll be able to say, if this is only, we're going to be allowed question and answers, or how are we going to proceed?
I'd like to have them answer the questions that were asked by the constituents,
Right.
but I'd also like them to answer your questions as well. But I want to make sure that the constituents' questions are answered first.
Right, but what if I don't have questions, I just want to make a statement? Will I be allowed at some point to make statements and not questions?
Well, with a smile on my face, I don't know that I've ever been able to prevent you from making a statement.
Okay, and then
Alderman
I
Van.
just had one more question. Could you please share the police report with us?
Sure, Alderman Dandria.
Thanks.
Jerry, when we talked about the animal welfare, we should tell the people at the time that the animal comes in, how long is that animal there until it's out the door? In my conversations with you guys is you expedite all animals that come in are processed that day and then out the building going to the grocery store. So can you just elaborate a little bit on that? That's the care that you're taking in regards to there's nothing standing still and waiting. It's a complete process. And you saw the length of this building. This will allow the production and the streamlining to be much more efficient than it currently is in the buildings that you have there, in the building you have there.
Yes, so to describe the process, the animal comes in and rests for a few hours, and then at that point, they basically go into production at that point. It's immediate. We'll clear out that lot relatively quickly. I would say in 30 to 45 minutes, and then it's processed on the harvest floor. I would say the whole process and then probably takes 16 minutes. But then we do hang the carcasses for 2 days. That's just, it's better to let it age. It's curing, tastes better. And temperature, you have to get the temperature down as well. And then it goes into processing right after that, and it is shipped directly to customers within days.
Thank
Yep.
Don?
Good evening. My name is Don Olson. I'm Vice President of Design for ESI Design Services, which is the design arm of ESI Group, which is the design build company, or part of the design build company that will be putting this project up if hopefully approved.
So before you go into it, you and I don't know each other, we're not related, we're not married.
No relation. No, you're Owen. I'm going to assume that's probably Norwegian. I'm Ian, Danish. So,
We don't go to the same barber. You didn't,
though, it kind of looks like we could almost.
you didn't give me any money, and none of that, right? Okay.
That is correct.
Because there's lots of rumors and people making statements. So, okay, good. Sorry, Don. Go ahead.
All right. Just to kind of give you a quick background about ESI, we are a national design build firm. We are based out of Heartland, Wisconsin, and we specialize in food distribution and food processing projects. That's all we do. We don't build or design churches, schools, hospitals. All we do are food processing and food distribution type products. So that's kind of give you kind of a real basic rough idea of who we are. On this first slide that we have here, we want to talk a little bit about traffic and kind of get into some of the detail. Jerry's already mentioned a couple of things. I'm just going to go into it a little bit farther. As you can see, this is an overview of the overall site. There's Highway 36 is on the north end of the project. It's angling down. That's the primary truck route. Off to the east is 112th. And then also on the little bit of north, you've got the existing Old Ryan Road on there. To the west, there's Highway 45 coming down. And it's was kind of cut off, but basically at the very south end would be Oakwood Road. And that. The primary truck traffic for the project is all going to be coming up either Highway 36 or 45. It will not be coming down Highway 100 and feeding from the north. Everything will be coming from the south and west. And then, if we could just flip to the second slide real quick. Again, we already kind of discussed a couple things, but again, the site slide is rotated 90 degrees, so north is to the right. As stated before, we come off of Highway 36, would be on the far right-hand side of the drawing. And that there's automobile entrance, single automobile entrance for parking for the employees, and then a separate truck entrance, and that's where all the livestock will come in, and then any finished product will leave out of that area. The livestock, again, as already previously stated, unloaded on the one end of the building. The process is a very linear process as the animals move through the building. And at the far end, or on the north side of the building, is where the loading docks are. That's really where all the finished goods are. We're showing a future dashed area on this for future expansion of the building. The base part of the building is 152,000 square feet. There's a potential to build on another 106,000 onto the site. And that, again, I think Jerry stated previously, or at least I think at our community meeting, that's something that's far off and far down the line. It's nothing is set to happen anytime soon on that particular piece. But what we wanted to do is actually design the site to be able to handle that. So the detention basins that are on the site, the three that have been noted before, again, those are for stormwater only. There's no wastewater that goes in there. This is just stormwater runoff that's going to essentially come from the grass areas, and some could come from some of the paving areas. But for the most part, this is all it's just picking up stormwater on site, and then that stormwater is ultimately pushed distributes out to.
Alderman Wello.
Well, we were talking about the building size. So your current building is about 42,000 square feet. That's under an acre. This one is nearly 4 acres.
Correct.
So, and the head that you're doing a day, you say now is 500, and then you say your head you're doing here is 500. why do you need that much more building to do the same amount? And is that going to be your cap? Or is there an idea to get bigger than 500?
So our cap will be 500 head per day
For both phases or just phase one?
for both phases. So for the first 2 to 3 years with our current forecast, our plan is to remain at 250 head a day. So this initial phase one can only handle 250. If we want to go to 500, we'll actually have to add additional carcass chill rooms, which is designated as that small dotted line in the green area. Our current facility can do 500 head a day, and at certain days of the week, it does do 500 head a day. But we need to note that these are veal caps that are roughly half the size well, really a third the size of steers. So that's one reason that the facility is going to be a bit larger, because the harvest floor component needs to be significantly larger. And then the processing area really is just to incorporate our existing equipment with some additional automation that will be added to the end of the lines. Because if you were to tour our current facility, it's really, we're sardines in there. And quite frankly, with what we do with that operation, we should have 80,000 square feet. So that's one reason that the building is going to grow 4 times.
So you wouldn't have any problem with putting a 500 head cap in your special use document?
Yeah, I don't know if it would be 500. I think we would, but we're willing to discuss a cap, yes.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is, I've asked several times, I've heard it at the Plan Commission, I've heard it at the council several times, and I had you verify it, and you said you're doing 500 a day, and under your current special use, your barn only holds 300, and you're saying you're doing 500, so there is some kind of a cap here, and once you get to 500, you're considered a significant industrial user. Even the slaughtering process is a significant industrial user. And you don't currently have an MMSD permit for being a significant industrial user at 300, let alone 500. I verified that with MMSD and the DNR. That is something you are required to have that you do not have currently. That's concerning to me. I get that the new facility will help take care of that, but you've been telling us things that aren't really matching up with some of the things that I've been researching. So the other thing that comes to mind is, we have public documents, Plan Commission, council documents, staff write-ups that talk about 20 trucks a day. Now today, I got this one, the total is 134 trucks a
No,
day.
that's
No.
for a food distribution facility as a comparison.
We're trying to show a comparison on
Well,
that.
right here you have 24 trucks a day on the 1,500, but then that's phase one, so if you add phase two, it's going to be much higher than that.
No.
There's 40 head on the truck,
There's 40 head, that's cattle delivery.
correct. And
But
what
then
comes
you
in
have-
What comes in goes out.
But wait a minute. You're getting ahead of the presentation, so let them do the presentation so that they can explain the
Well,
slide.
Well, you told me
None of your
that.
alderman colleagues have seen that page yet, so let's let them get back.
No,
to
this
the
is the one they,
I haven't seen it yet.
Mm.
It's coming up. Ms. Rolson, continue.
I thought I'd be able to ask questions. Okay.
Well, let's flip to the next page.
But let's
and-
get to the page
Sure,
first.
this will be. Okay, this is predicted inbound and outbound traffic for the site. So the top chart is for Strauss Brands based on a 150,000 square foot facility. We're looking at cattle delivery. Now, this is ultimately at 500 head a day. These numbers are based on 500 head a day, just so you know, okay? And a truck will, depending on the size of the cattle, I believe, we usually figure somewhere between 38 and 42 cattle per truckload. So roughly to get to 500, you need 12 trucks to come in on that. Again, this is assuming a delivery starting as early as 1 a.m. With ending cattle delivery at 1 p.m. That would average 1 truck per hour for that 12-hour period. Finished goods outbound, there'd be about 8 trucks would take care of the outbound product leaving the facility on a given day. They'd be going from about 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Again, roughly 1 truck per hour over that 8-hour time span. There could be up to 3 trucks for waste removal per day. Again, that's going to happen after the shift is done, so you're between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m., so it's 1.5 trucks per hour. And then essentially you'd have like a truck for miscellaneous goods inbound for cardboard and plastics for packaging and that type of thing. So taking a look at that, you'd have a potential really total of 24 trucks per day between 1 a.m. and 6 p.m., or the equivalent of 1.42 trucks an hour. Or if you want to reverse that, you can go about 1 truck every 40 minutes or 42 minutes. Just to give you an idea as what you could see if this was not what Strauss is doing, but if you took a typical food service distribution center of 150,000 square feet, you would see 65 trucks coming in from 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. or outbound. On that's 13 trucks an hour. And then to refill that facility, you'd see 45 inbound trucks from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. or 10 trucks per hour. That's an average over that time of 8 trucks per hour, almost 5.5 times what Strauss has. We're just trying to throw that in as a comparison to understand that really the amount of truck traffic that you're going to see from Strauss is very, very small in the overall time span.
Right,
And
that helps me understand what you have the distribution on
Okay.
here. So it's 1.42 trucks coming in per hour, is what
Correct.
you're saying. So just for Alderman Nelson's knowledge, I can have 1 truck going up at the Sam's Club loading dock, and my phone rings because the condos are right there. And I don't know what the difference in the distance is, but that might be something. Is there any way to turn off those beepers? Because,
Well, that's actually a safety requirement, so that
and
would,
is there
that
any
would-
way to turn them down?
I believe, in all honesty, I believe that's an OSHA requirement that sets the decibel level of the beepers for trucks backing up.
I just don't think that will be very conducive to the residential is my concern, because I know I deal with it.
But there's
I'm
also
probably one of the few
there's
that
also another
have
thing you want to consider. Highway 36 alone, on average, per the DOT, sees 15,000 vehicles per day on that road, all day long. I mean, so you're seeing that 15,000 vehicles. Now, granted, there's going to be times during the day where it's higher and lower, but on average, you're seeing 15,000 vehicles going up and down Highway 36 on a daily basis past this site. So to put 24 trucks into 15, added into 15,000 vehicles running up and down that, they can be running there 24 hours a day. Again, 24 trucks is very, very minor.
until they hit the loading dock and they start backing up and the calls start coming in. I just want to make sure that we all understand
Well, let's
that
all
aspect.
understand, this is an internal loading dock, not an external one like at Sam's Club. There's a big
It's-
This
difference.
one won't be.
No, this
The
one
loading
won't be.
dock is, the livestock in is,
The
the
in one,
loading
yes,
out
that's
is
correct.
with the reefer.
The outbound one is away from the residential unit, generally. The cattle
No,
is,
the outbound one is on the residential.
Right, and
Is
the
on the
outbound
north side.
is really happening during the day. It's not happening in the,
and it's
at
closest to
night.
Loomis Road, and it's farthest away from the residential development. Believe, guys, I know what
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I mean, I appreciate the reefer, I understand that part of it. We do, all modern trailers, so, I've watched and seen reefers that are 15, 20, 25 years old, and they definitely get louder, and obviously there's not the same, technology in reefers, but we run ours 3 to 4 years, and they swap out, so. We do run very modern refrigeration with our trailers.
At
And there's at no
10:15, we have
point-
not gotten to
At no
orders.
point are we gonna want a trailer sitting overnight in that dock running. There's, there's no benefit to us to have that, so,
We got a better refrigerator in the building.
100%.
It's 10:15, let's keep going.
All
Not
right.
be worrying about the little stuff.
I won't rehash this completely. Mr. Ady did a really nice job of kind of explaining what the outside of the building looks like and the different views. You can just even flip to the next one. Again, this is just a view of the main employee entrance. That little close-up on that. The building itself is constructed of insulated metal panels for the most part. The office area, the employee welfare area, that will have decorative architectural metal panels and brick as it's outside. So we believe we've done created a very aesthetically pleasing looking facility. We have added some screen walls on that to, as was discussed earlier, to hide generators and transformers and that type of equipment. Again, next, this is just a blow-up again of the front entry for the employees in the main entrance. And that view from Highway 36, and then a view going into the truck area for the building. The building itself, I'd like just take a brief discussion of what this is. Kind of color-coded it into its main areas. So the green area is where the livestock receiving is. The red area is a abattoir or harvest area. There's 3 brown areas, no pun intended on this, it's for waste treatment. And the darker blue is the cooler area for the carcasses. The lighter blue is what's known as the fabrication room, processing area. The purple is shipping docks and loading docks. The yellow is basic support, mechanical spaces, and then the orange color is employee welfare and administrative areas.
This area is much improved from what is currently exists in the existing facility. Much more room for each individual employee. I can say this because I took the tour. Much improved in this area and actually in this area. So for those who were concerned about COVID, much better here. And office space too, for that matter. So that all helps.
I have a
Alderman
question.
Wilhelm,
Could you go over the brown area again and
Which one?
specifically,
This one
the
or this
small one, right, the first small one by itself?
this one?
No,
This
it's tan colored, not gray,
Tan.
not gray brown.
Tan. This one? Next to the, here.
You almost had it,
Almost only comes,
that one,
That's also employee welfare area.
okay.
There's a breakdown of what's kind of known as dirty harvest versus clean harvest. 2 different groups of employees work that. We separate that for safety purposes and cleanliness within the building.
I can't really see what those little 3 little blocks are right there in the front. I don't know what those are, but,
That was just some outdoor seating area
No.
for,
no, it's not that area. It's,
Those are lockers.
okay. I was looking at one area where the trucks come in, and there was a certain grate that was down on the ground. And it looked like it's, the name of the grate is made for stormwater. Is that what's in front of the loading dock? It's on like C50 or something.
honestly not sure what, I'd have to,
Okay.
You're talking on the livestock side?
Yes,
You think you got the dock going down and then that's probably what the base of
it could be, yeah, that could just,
there would be, right,
that would have been just a,
there'd be
just a
stormwater.
drain, yeah, just a thing to catch water that would actually go
Right,
into
so-
into the sanitary side of things.
my thought was, when I looked at the drawings, the grate collects everything pretty much that could fall off of there, and I know you have straw in there, but I've been behind vehicles that stuff falls out of them, and you're moving cattle in and out, it's not gonna be a clean situation. Is there any way to pipe that particular, what might fall off, through your wastewater system? Because right now it goes directly into the stormwater basin.
Yes, that, anything or actually around that area that would come off the truck, because where it backs in, we would actually have a drains inside that area that would be pushed all the way into the sanitary side of it and going through
Yeah,
the.
well, the piping
pre-treatment.
shows directly that it goes directly into the stormwater
That,
basin.
I don't,
You might want to check that out, because
I
I
don't
spent
think,
a lot
I
of
think
time
that
looking at
there,
it.
yeah, I would have to double check to see that exact drawing, if there was an inerrant line that was put in there. But no, there's nothing there that would be, we would be putting directly into the stormwater system.
It looks like it's meant for parking, usually parking off, well.
We'd have a certain amount of, drainage inside the parking lot or
Right.
in there, but I'm gonna say that might have just been an errant line or that, we would not have that being drained into the stormwater system.
All right, well, I want some assurity on that, because it's going there, you know, so.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay, next page, just to kind of, the wastewater treatment system itself. And again, as Jerry had indicated, currently, Strauss does not have a pretreatment system at all. This is a kind of a general diagram of how a wastewater pretreatment system would work. So on the far left-hand side of the diagram, you see incoming processed waste, and that's all waste from inside the building. So from the harvest floor area, the cattle, the livestock, holding pens, the fabrication area and the processing area, all the drains inside there, this all funnels into this pre-treatment system. Everything goes through, it's known as a rotary drum screen. That basically takes and removes larger particles and chunks of fat and that would potentially end up down the drain. And then puts the liquid down into the rest of the system. That goes into the equalization tank. There's a aeration blower that puts air into that equalization tank that helps separate the solids from the liquid. Once it's gone through that, it goes through what's known as a flocculator. There, chemicals are added into the mix that further help separate out any of the heavy particles from the wastewater stream. And then that ultimately goes into a diffused air flotation unit known as a DAF. And what that does, they actually pump more air through that, and as the particles float to the top, the particles are stripped off, and that goes into a sludge tank that's ultimately taken off to further treatment at a sewage treatment plant. Then the rest of that effluent is discharged from the DAF unit, essentially down the sanitary sewer system, which ultimately ends up going through MMSD. Now, the one thing is the equalization tank and the diffused air flotation unit. Those are the two things that basically generate the most smell. Those are actually designed to be fully enclosed with caps on them. And the vent pipes are off of those, come off, and that goes through a odor control unit, which is a two-part air scrubber. And I can get a little bit further into what that specifically is. The wastewater itself, what MMSD looks at are four major things. They look at BODs, which is the biological oxygen demand, total suspended solids, which is TSS, fats, oils, and grease, which is known as FOG or HEM, and pH. Those are the four things that MMSD looks at. We're looking at right now the current levels prior to any treatment. For the BODs, 900 to 2,000 milligrams per liter. After, it would be down to 315 to 700. The current levels that Strauss is seeing at their current facility is 900, so this would be a 23 to 65% reduction from what Strauss currently is doing. The total suspended solids, we'd expect 300 to 850 milligrams per liter. After treatment, 30 to 85. Current levels are 486. We would be seeing an 82 to 94% reduction. The fats, oils, and grease, 500 to 1,000. After pretreatment, 50 to 100. Current levels are 138. This is a 28 to 63% reduction. In the pH, before pretreatment, the system is designed to handle anything from a pH of 3 to 12. After pretreatment, it wants to be greater than 5. Currently, the current levels are 7.09, which is actually right in line where they want to be on that, so there really is no reduction or change on that. Now, MMSD does set limits for the BODs, the TSS, fats, oils, and grease, and the pH. The two things that the MMSD cares the most about are the fats, oils, and grease, and the pH. Those are the things that they care about. The BODs and the total suspended solids, it's not they don't care about them. The limits that they set, you can exceed it. And they actually don't care how much you exceed it. You just have to pay a surcharge to do it. So what we're doing, or what you'll see here, is we're going to be well below, or at the levels that we need for the fats, oils, and grease, the pH. The total suspended solids will be well below what MMSD is looking for there. And the only one that we could potentially or be over is on the BODs. And again, that's something that they have no issue taking as much as you put down the proverbial drain. It's just you end up paying a surcharge, whatever that overage is on that. We have reviewed this with MMSD, the basic concept of the plan and what the type of system we're looking at. And in general, they're in agreement with it. However, just like anything else, they need to see the final plans and specifications finalized for this, for them to review. And Strauss needs to apply for their for an actual permit. So ultimately, those things still have to be done. But we've had the initial discussions with MMSD, and they're, as Jerry said, those discussions started well over a year ago. Sure.
You have had those discussions, but it was on your Century City. It wasn't on this one.
We've had discussions. The concept of the wastewater treatment system and what they would be putting down the drain would have been no different if this was in Century City, here, or, anywhere.
I know, but it's
anywhere.
just a little bit, not quite 100% that you're actually working, because we don't have you haven't had a communication with them on this particular site.
Actually, I have.
Okay.
I
Well,
have.
I'm just going by what the DNR just sent me today, and they
That's not
apparently
true,
were
all of
talking
them.
with them, so.
Yeah.
Because I've had conversations with them, they're well aware of this facility.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
they're well aware of the facility, but they haven't had any, it's right here, I can share it later, but.
No, I mean, I'm not,
Careful what you
I've
say.
had conversations to have the basic, initial, again, we had deeper conversations with them a year ago at Century City, that is true. We've had subsequent conversations with them, actually just within the last week, to discuss, to go over some of these specific things, specific to their actual levels of what we're looking at ultimately designing the system for. Again, as I said, the final design of the system, along with that application, still has to be applied for, and they have to do their final review. But we have had initial conversations with them, and I'd be happy to show you the emails that show that we have.
I'm happy to show you my email as well.
On the odor control, there are basically 3 areas that have the potential to create odor. One is the livestock receiving and the cattle pen area. The other is the wastewater treatment room, which we just talked about, the trash room and the waste product room, the abattoir area or harvest room, and then there's a processing byproduct room that comes off of the processing area, fabrication area. And I'll start with that. That's the easiest. It's that small area. It's fully enclosed and it's refrigerated. So, and as we discussed earlier, by refrigerating that, we essentially eliminated the chance for odors. Again, it's fully enclosed, and because it is refrigerated, it's not ventilated with any outside air. So that the only time that door gets open is when that trailer gets pulled out, and that's going to happen probably once every couple of days, if that. Heading back the other direction, the abattoir area or the harvest floor. This area actually doesn't produce that much odor. And I believe one of the other aldermen had indicated that it smelled kind of at the equivalent of going to the butcher area. So this area, what we're doing is we're ventilating this with 60,000 CFM of outside air. And from a code standpoint, this is 60 times more than what code would require for this kind of space, for ventilation air. And the one thing is it's a single pass. So the air, 60,000 CFM of air comes in, essentially on the north side, it passes through that space and it is exhausted at the roof level on the south side of that room. That air does not mix with or be recirculated into that space at all. It is, again, a single pass. There's twofold what this does. One, that area itself from a temperature standpoint is ambient. It's not cold. So that large volume of air does two things. It helps make that comfortable for the workers. It also, from a single pass standpoint, we don't have air that's recirculating and have a potential that can be contaminated. It goes through and it's exhausted immediately. And because we're using such a large volume of air, and since there's so little potential smell in that area, any odor that could happen is easily dissipated on that. The cattle area itself for the livestock receiving, again, this is fully enclosed. It's ventilated with up to 150,000 CFM of outside air during the summer. And again, this is also a single pass. So the air is not recirculated. It doesn't sit in there a very long time to pick up a lot of smells. However, because of cattle being in the air, in there waiting to be processed, there is going to be urine and manure that's produced. The barn area itself is kept clean throughout the day. On that, at the night, it's completely washed down. What we're doing is, again, we're putting a large volume of air through there, and then as that air is exiting that space, we have ozone generators put on those exhaust fans to eliminate any odor leaving the barn that could be generated in there. The waste product room, again, that area is also fully, I'm sorry.
Alderman Hammond.
Thank you. And if I may stop you for just a moment there.
Sure.
The fans that are blowing through that livestock receiving area, as you say, it's a one pass. Can you tell me a little more about the size of those fans and if there will be a discernible kind of whirling drone that anyone in the area would be able to hear, say in the nearby residential areas?
Sure. I mean, John, you would see from a decibel rating, probably a fan, if you're standing right next to it, you'd probably be in the 80 to 85 decibel range. We can get very specific and find out exactly, depending on the manufacturer, what is. But I would, based on previous jobs and what the fans are normally sized for sound, you're right around 85 decibels. That decibel rating will drop significantly the farther you get away from it. We can do calculations to determine what the decibel rating is by the time you get to the property line. But generally, by the time you get to the property line, you're back down to ambient decibel ratings in the area, which is probably going to be more in about the mid 50 to 60 decibel ratings of what you'd have. So if you put a decibel meter in here in this room right now and set it out, it's probably going to be reading right around 50 decibels. So you're really not going to hear, once you get out to the property line, you will not hear those fans.
If I may, decibel levels are a frequent topic of conversation for this council, for other areas and developments that are in the community. And we all take calls and comments about those. And there seems to be disagreement at different points in time, given the winds or how much humidity is in the air. So that is something I would like to see a little bit more information on, and I think that there should be some limits applied, and that we all understand what sound level would be expected or allowed or appropriate to be emitted from those fans. And I don't know if that's something we can determine here at 10:30 at night, but I think that that is getting to the heart of something that many residents are very, very afraid of.
52 dB. Your conversation was 52 dB, average. Could. Who's gonna go measure it? I'll say that again loudly. Alderwoman Hanneman's conversation averaged 52 dB. Can go as low as 46 and as high as 58. If anybody cares.
Okay, just to wrap up this, the waste product room, again, that's fully enclosed. It's fitted with ozone generators. They remove 99% of any odors that are generated in that space. That space itself is only going to be ventilated with about 500 CFM of air, and that's only just to eliminate buildup of heat inside that room. And that's pretty much only going to happen during the summertime. But 500 CFM is, again, a very, very small amount of air that we're ventilating out of that. And the ozone generator should take care of all the smell on that. The trash room is, again, that's fully enclosed. It actually is refrigerated, so that refrigeration should eliminate the odors in that, coming from that space. And the wastewater treatment room, which I described a little bit earlier, the two parts to make the most, or the potential for odor generating in there are the equalization tank and the DAF unit. Those both have lids on it. Both units are then vented through an air scrubber. It's a two-stage oxidizing air scrubber that uses chlorine dioxide and a countervailant technology. And if you want to get more into the detail of that, we can, but probably not at this point in time. Ultimately, the big thing that creates odor is hydrogen sulfide, or H2S. And that's really what we're trying to eliminate the smell of. And again, the ozone generators and the air scrubbers will take care of 99+% of anything that generates any odor from that. Lastly, I know that there's a concern about ammonia, and so just a couple things. The refrigeration system that is being planned on using uses anhydrous ammonia as a refrigerant for the refrigeration system. And anhydrous ammonia contains no water, so it has there's an affinity for water. It likes water. It's kind of actually looking for it. Ammonia is used because it's natural, it's highly efficient, it's economical. It has no global warming or ozone depletion potential, and it has been used as a refrigerant since 1850. Ammonia is considered flammable. Concentrations of 16 to 25%. However, you need a ignition source of above 1560 degrees to ignite it. So the actual chances for fire with ammonia are quite low. If there is an explosion or fire with it, usually that is happening because of somebody's got a torch next to a pipe or something like that, and they haven't taken care of it properly.
Excuse me. Is that what happens when fertilizer plants blow up? Because that's the same product.
Correct. Anhydrous ammonia is used in fertilizer, but generally it's, I don't have the exact knowledge of what would cause the explosions there on that, so I really wouldn't want to answer that because I just don't have the knowledge.
Dust explosions.
Pardon?
Those are dust explosions, mostly, aren't they?
Could be. I mean, again, in ammonia, for fertilizer, there's also a lot of things that sometimes they mix as well. But again, I don't have the knowledge, so I really can't answer that question.
Fertilizer plants are usually dust. There was the one in West Texas that was quite large. I think they were storing large amounts of solid, like a pellet form of fertilizer, and that's a different situation than usually ammonia exploding when it's mixed with, like fuel oil, like ammonium nitrate. But ammonia on its own it has explosive properties under some conditions, but not likely in this setting.
Well, since we're on this topic, which was one of the points I wanted to talk about. I have a close relative that actually does work with this product, and we've talked about it quite a bit. And he says, well, it comes in as liquid, which means it's trucked in as liquid. And the system loses over time, so you have to eventually add more liquid. So it's not like it's just a one-time delivery. It comes in occasionally. And then he said the way it works is it's sent through a series of compressors, like your car air conditioner has a compressor. And it's a liquid sent to a compressor, turned to a gas, turned to another compressor, turned to a gas. And that's what creates the cold and the refrigeration of it. He said it's not necessarily the liquid unless it's being trucked in that's the problem. He said it's the escaping gas. And he called it a moisture scavenger. As you said, it is anhydrous. So
Alderwoman,
it's,
Yes.
let's do this.
what?
Got expert here. Let's let the expert
I
talk about it.
have expert from a family member who works in the
But
industry,
yours is hearsay,
so.
his is direct, so
Mine
let's use
is-
the
is-
direct.
You know what?
Alderwoman, we got the direct expert here. Let's let him do that. I was
Okay.
last meeting, I was told that I wasn't an expert, even though I was. So let's let the expert do it.
Well, I'd like to say that
Mr. Olson, go ahead.
I spoke,
Mr. Olson, go ahead.
I'm being cut off.
All right. Again, I'll finish this and we can go from there. I mean, again,
No,
right,
I run the meeting, not you guys. Mr. Olson
Right.
has the floor.
okay. Ammonia is considered caustic, and that's probably the bigger issue than really the fire side of things. And it is dangerous at high levels of exposure. There's no kidding about that. Exposure above 300 parts per million, and again, now that we are talking about not liquid, we're talking about gas in the air, is hazardous. Exposure to 130 parts per million is acceptable for up to about 8 hours. At 50 parts per million, it's considered no injury for prolonged or repeated exposure. The one thing ammonia has is a very low odor threshold, so people can actually smell it at 20 parts per million. So usually it kind of acts as its own early warning system. If somebody can smell ammonia, you know, it's something that they know they need to check and look at right away. And just to try and give you an idea of again how many ammonia systems there are in the United States. There are currently over 10,000 facilities in the United States that use industrial ammonia refrigeration systems. Wisconsin alone has over 250 of them. Illinois and Iowa each have over 1,000. Between the years of 2005 and 2019, there were a total of 396 ammonia-related incidents at these facilities. That equates to a yearly accident rate of 0.28% for the industry. Strauss is going to implement all required EPA requirements for process safety management for the building and the system. The building will be fitted with ammonia systems throughout the building to detect any signs or problems of any leakage. And to protect, you know, it's not only just to protect the workers, it's also to protect the product. If ammonia gets released and it hits the product, that's all waste. It's going to be a very, you know, the system is designed to be as safe as you possibly can. It's going to be fully designed to meet all the requirements and guidelines of the IIAR, which is the International Institute of Ammonia Refrigeration. They set a lot of the standards for this and what we design around. Strauss is going to be, there'll be a third-party contractor that we're going to service and maintain the system, in addition to their on-site people that will be running that system. That will also allow them to be able to monitor that thing continuously. For additional safety, the refrigeration system is going to be designed with a dilution tank. And basically what that does, in case of a overpressurization of the system, the relief valve will open and it will release all the ammonia in the system into the water tank and essentially make it inert. Basically what it does is it takes all the liquid ammonia and it dumps all the liquid ammonia that's in the system, and it'll push that through the tank and basically diffuse that ammonia.
Yeah,
Now-
that was what I was trying to get at. I hope I don't get muted again, because I just wanted to make one point.
Alderwoman Wilhelm, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you.
It's always good that,
I know that we're pretty much just here to hear the good stuff, but my job isn't just here to hear the good stuff. And I think it's important that we pull back the curtain and talk about the things that could happen. Now, we know that they could be slight, but if we don't address what could happen, we can't put a plan that safely protects our community. And I get a little upset when I keep getting cut off, because I have questions that I've gotten from people. So, as I was saying, it is a moisture scavenger, and it does go directly to your eyes and your nose and your membranes, and it can be quite dangerous.
Yes,
Uh,
there's no
Thank you.
no lie about that at all.
Okay. And what my concern is, not that it happens a lot. My concern is that it happens even once. And we have a police department that says they don't feel like the area is being served that well. That is concerning to me. The other thing that I didn't hear anyone discuss was, when the fire department arrives, they need to know an evacuation area if it's a gas. Can we just at least put a windsock on top of the building? So,
That's actually a requirement.
thank you.
So yeah, as part of the PSM program, that's required. You need to have a windsock on there, and part of the plan is exactly, will determine,
I just didn't see that the plan commission even really knew enough to ask the question, so I needed to just ask the question.
and that's fine. And again, we're not trying to hide that ammonia is perfect. There's no hazard here. You have to kind of look at it the same way you'd look at natural gas. We pipe natural gas to our house, to our furnaces, to our water heaters. It's piped all the way over in buildings, and that has a huge potential for explosion and fire on that side of it. So we deal with different hazards all the time in buildings. We just have to take it into account, what exactly the system is, design it properly, design it to the appropriate guidelines and regulations, and meet those requirements. And overall, taking a look at it from that standpoint, I guess my statement is the question, is ammonia refrigeration safe? And my answer is yes, but there's a caveat to it. The system has to be properly maintained, and it has to be properly designed.
So
and
what do you
properly
feel
operated.
about the need for,
Alderwoman Wilhelm,
the police and
let's hear
fire?
from the fire chief, Chief Remington.
We identified the ammonia on site early on as a concern just for this reason, to make sure that all these items are properly considered and addressed as the project moves forward. Not because in and of itself, ammonia within the building is automatically a huge danger to public health and safety. We just want to make sure this right process is followed and all of this is considered in the design as the project moves forward. It's something we certainly need to know about from the firefighting perspective. And when we're going to show up at a building like this and there's potentially ammonia inside, we have to know which operating engineer to grab to tell us how to properly shut this down, in what order, if that's what we need to do. Initially, it's not going to look like any different than any other response, like for a gas leak, for a major fire. We're going to show up, we're going to assess the situation, we're going to talk to the people on scene, we're going to make sure we have appropriate resources there, and we're going to handle the problem. We're going to keep the people away from the problem. In searching throughout the state, ammonia incidents that's happened within the state over the last 5 years, and there's only a handful They've been quickly and effectively handled, for the most part, by rural volunteer departments. So I'm confident we have the capacity. I just wanted to make sure we are following the right process and doing things right.
As I am. We're on the same page with that.
The staffing issue on the southern part of our city, that's another issue. That dates back 20 years. We've never staffed Station 2 properly. We as a city need to find a way to do this. We can discuss that at a later date. That's not about Strauss. That's not about one project or another. That's about us now having development occurring in areas that are served by a two-person fire station, the only two-person fire station in Milwaukee County, and now we have significant development coming in that we need to address.
That's why you hire professional staff and you let them do their jobs. Okay. Randy? Alderwoman Hanneman, you did some research. Your microphone, please.
So I've prepared some comments. Some of the issues that I may have had have been answered here, so thank you. So first off, I am the alderperson for the 4th District where Strauss currently resides. I do live just over a mile as the crow flies from the current facility. And they've been here longer than I have in this community. So first off, I do want to acknowledge and thank every one of the residents, especially my constituents in 4th District, who have taken time to email and call and have had some meaningful conversations with me about this over the past couple of weeks. Some of us haven't agreed on every point, but I appreciate the engagement and the communications. One point most of us do agree on is that Franklin is a growing community and we have growing industries. While that is generally regarded as a good problem to have, especially during a time of great economic uncertainty, it does not come without the inherent growing pains that accompany that sort of change. Change is very hard in any area of life, especially when there is a set of perceived unknowns and complexities. Could we, as a government, and Strauss as well, done a better job of outreach and sharing information at the front end of this process? You bet we could. It's called change management, and I'll throw myself under the bus with all the rest of us. I think we could have done a lot more to say bring on Economic Development Commission on board or assist with presenting the community what the plans were for this portion of the city, what the cost and benefits would have been. Maybe we could have put together an online FAQ page where we could address concerns, meet people where they are, and not rely on rumor and conjecture to fuel the frenzy. We could have been much more transparent and forthcoming on a lot of the information, and I'll hold myself to that standard going forward as long as I still hold this position. While it's not our job up here to sell this development on behalf of Strauss, our residents do look to us for answers. A communication and change management plan might have presented some of the anxiety that many of our residents have had, especially over the past couple of weeks. So to that end, I've spent a good portion of time over the past couple of weeks deeply immersed in teasing out some of these complexities in an effort to inform my position and my vote, based on fact rather than on emotion, fear, and hearsay. Admittedly, my perspective is also informed by my upbringing, experiences, and education. For those who don't know me very well, I hold a master's degree in applied economics from Marquette University School of Business, and I am certified in economic measurement by the National Association of Business Economics. So I took it upon myself to conduct a professional economic impact study so we can have a more clear picture of what this project can mean in economic terms to the city of Franklin. What I've discerned is that currently, just by being located and doing business in the city of Franklin, our local economy benefits by an additional $1.3 million a year. This accounts for purchases that Strauss makes from local businesses such as fuel at local gas stations, office supply products they might use, any of those sundry items. It also accounts for money that their employees spend in the city in places such as the grocery stores and restaurants. My analysis estimates that with the proposed expansion, this would increase to $2.4 million worth of indirect and induced money in our local economy. That is money that goes to our restaurants, to our bars, to our grocery stores, our hair cutting places, many businesses. So Strauss projects that their investment in $60 million of construction would allow them to produce an annual revenue of about $275 million by 2024. This stimulus would increase the total economic impact to $337 million just within the 53132 zip code. And it would directly support over 700 jobs through their expanded output and construction jobs on this project. The impact to Milwaukee County is even greater. So to be clear, if Strauss is ultimately denied this expansion, that's our trade-off. In addition to over $4 million in impact fees that would be paid to the city of Franklin if they take out a construction permit, and guaranteed taxes of over $300,000, which is significantly higher than what they paid in 2019. So that's an overview. I have my report here somewhere down here, but I'll share that afterwards with anyone who might want to see it. But I thought we might want to know what some of those numbers are. Thank you.
I as well did a quick report for a constituent who said, why not put some houses there instead? Which was an interesting thought because they just made a comment to me on the phone call of, who'd want to build a house there? It's near the dump. Well, I said, okay, so you want to put some houses there? I can run those numbers for you. So I did a quick calculation of 22 houses, and based on what Mr. Mills was talking about, at $500,000 each. Of course, you got to delay some things because you got to go through rezoning and the rest of that. With Strauss, with the guaranteed value, with the assessment guarantee for the first 2 years, $15 million for 21 and 22, jumps to $60 million in 23. That's an assumed assessed value attached by state of Wisconsin. The first 2 years, their taxes would be $333,300, based on a tax rate of $22.22. You probably wouldn't get a home built. This does not count for probably $9 million in roads, sewer, gutter, water, et cetera, that need to be put in. But you build 2 homes, probably get 2 homes up in 22, 6 in 23, absorption in 12 and 24, et cetera, the net is, once you're fully built out, I estimated in 26, you'd have $11 million worth of homes and $60 million worth of Strauss. So there's what is that math? $49 million difference in assessed value, but the taxes are $1,333,200 for Strauss, and Jerry's about ready to walk out, versus $200,000 for homes. So that's a big tax difference. So people make this mistake of thinking there's a lot of money in taxes in houses. There's not. Alderman Dandria.
I think along that same line, Mr. Mayor, is the significant impact that would occur on our infrastructure in the city, meaning the school system. Also, the impact on our library, on our police department and our fire department. Those are going to have more significant impact than an industrial business business park in general. So I think we've beat this long enough. I think we need to move forward, and I'd like to make that motion to adopt the resolution imposing conditions and restrictions for the approval. Let's get the motion on the table.
Wow.
There's going to be a point for
Shouldn't we
discussion
let the alderman of
afterwards.
the district make a motion? It's his district.
I've got the floor. Approval of
Wow.
special use for the meat processing facility, use upon property located at the southwest corner of the intersection of West Loomis Road and the new Monarch Drive, Lot 83 of Ryan Meadows subdivision, Strauss Brands LLC applicant.
Is there a second for that motion? Second. Okay. Alderman Nelson.
No.
It's time for discussion first,
Yeah,
but thank
I
you
have-
for letting us know what your vote is.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
that was a complete setup. So I have some information that I think the resident should hear. So the mayor gave us earlier, he said 20 EMS calls, 14 EMS and 20 fire calls over 10 years. So I asked him for this document, because this is the police and fire calls, regardless of alarm or what it is, this takes staff time. So what I came up with was, in 2 years, there were 45 calls. He says in 10 years, there's only 34 calls. So there's a pretty big difference there in what you were told, and I think that this should be a public document. And that's what I'm having with a lot of this. We are not here to sell this project for them. They are supposed to sell it to you. They're supposed to sell it to us. There's been a lot of information that was given here tonight that you as the public didn't get to vet. I didn't get to vet it. I appreciate Sherry Hanneman, Alderwoman Hanneman's comments. I appreciate what the mayor says. But I'm a person who likes to read and analyze it and vet it. I can't vet verbal comments. I have no documents in front of me. And this should have been made available to the Plan Commission members when they were looking at it. So since Sherry got to give her presentation, I'm going to give a little one of my own. I would like all the calculations to be vetted by our expert financials, Ellers. Between the public comments and the massive number of emails, our work should be actually somewhat simplified. So I went through and I crossed off some of the things were addressed, so hopefully that will shorten this up a little bit. The claimed positive tonight's are jobs and tax base. The available public information contains confusion on the number of jobs either going to be created or present. The information we were given tonight does not match the information given to the public. That needs to be more thoroughly looked at, because I can't sit here and say we're going to vote on jobs when I counted up 12 people who spoke against the idea of jobs and 3 people that had favorable job comments. And when we have figures that don't match, that doesn't work very well. So the current presentation should have been public and should have been be able to vetted. You said you've been working on this since, 2016, and we're just getting this presentation tonight. There should have been public meetings. Yes, we should have done a better job. Yes, there should have been plans out in the hallways, at the library, everywhere for this. Mr. O'Malley had to come in for a concept review for tennis courts and a swimming pool. And you come in with a massive 4-acre building for phase 1, and they vote on it in the Plan Commission on the same night, and now we're supposed to vote on it without the district alderperson even having a say. Will there be a need for Loomis Road shuttle between Milwaukee since only 3 of your employees are working in Franklin? And the taxes are based on the value is the difference in zoning. The assessed value will be set by the state, and that will be somewhere around 60%. That's much less than if we would have left this zone business. There is also no personal property taxes collected on industrial users, like there are in businesses. We need to take that into consideration. So, but what is really before us? Is it jobs? Is it taxes? They had one woman told me, I don't care, raise my taxes, I don't want to live in a community with a slaughterhouse. That kind of said a lot to me. So what is before us is a special use. A special use is 15-3 as, I couldn't believe how many people knew the ordinance in this audience and studied it. So I give them a lot of credit. Our job is to approve or deny a special use permit. And a special use permit shall not be granted unless, and some of the residents said that, it's consistent and in harmony with the city's master plan. I saw people holding up the color versions. The use and activity conflicts with the master plan and the zoning. So guess what? We rezoned it because it conflicted. So it's not consistent with the master plan. It seems the user creates a cascade of rezoning to accommodate its use. I don't know how many people know about the rezoning to put the junkyard to the south so they wouldn't have a use that would be in conflict with the slaughter yard, but that set up another rezone. That was the controversial split vote. It was also not consistent with the master plan. This is the future of our city. We put that 42-inch pipe in the ground for the Ryan Creek Interceptor for the future growth of our city. And this is the center wagon wheel of that area. We're also to consider the coordination, cooperation of nearby units of government. We were pretty much told Muskego doesn't count. That's not what the land use documents and the Wisconsin statutes documents for smart growth and comprehensive master plans tell us we're supposed to do. It also includes consideration for farmland preservation. We have not taken any of that in consideration in our entire planning process with this. We're not our own island. What we approve can impact others. So I was kind of surprised when no one responded that their current permit compliance, which I have from the DNR, and that they're considered a significant user, and that they don't have a permit from MSD right now for their current use. I have it in writing right here. I've had it verified. I didn't want to bring it up until I had it verified, but they do not have their permit. They contacted the district yesterday regarding the need to permit this source, even in its existing operations. MMSD was involved in the discussions with the facility when the site was proposed at Century City in the city of Milwaukee. It is my understanding they have not yet been involved since that time. Now, they're saying they have, so I can't dispute that, but this came to me today. So, but, so then they're only supposed to have the holding capacity for 300. They said they were, right on the record, they're at 500 calves a day. And that's the current special use. We're about to give them a similar special use. So if we can't hold them to the special use they have now, I think we should be concerned about putting in some conditions for the special use in the future if those that are going to vote on this do that. And I have a list of things that if I were voting in favor of this, right now I'm not compelled to do that unless some of those conditions could get put in at all, and then I'm not so sure. slaughtering in general places them in the significant user category, and they fail to require their permits. There's no rush. The applicant has not obtained all the approvals, and there's no proof that the applicant will, but they probably will, or will not be able to comply at the same rate of speed that we're moving this along. Those permits from the MSCs, this is going to take some vetting. We don't really have to move at the speed we're doing because they're not going to get those in a day or two. Adequate public facilities. Our vote depends on proof the development is adequately served by essential public services, including public water supply, police and fire, or the applicant will provide for such facilities. Water usage. The current water usage, according to my nearly phone call with Jerry here, he said they're paying $25,000 a month in water at a quarter of the size. I don't know what that means for our draw of our water, but that's the current special exception has some really great wording in for water conditions. And I think that old wording about if they use so much gallons and the whole wording, and the staff can look that up, should be another one of those conditions in the special use. The 1999 legislation requires water supply plan approved by the DNR and showing it is consistent with the comprehensive master plan. Well, we recently rezoned the master plan. Here's the water plan right here. Spent the time reading it. It says in here that industrial users or users out in here would require this. So this is needed for Strauss. Otherwise, we probably won't have the water pressure capacity for the fire department. Okay. So please don't just tell the residents, we can meet the water pressure requirements for fire service and the unknown gallons that you will need. At the same time, while we're buying land for a new water tower, proof is upon the applicant. There are many emails as late as today where others continue to make their case for them, which also weren't part of the public for you to view, all the emails that we got. The applicant has not met the requirement related to the safety services. The fire chief sent an email yesterday stating they're not able to safely serve the additional development. This would present an unreasonable danger to the health or safety of the applicant's workforce, other site users, and the public. That recent letter needs to be made publicly available to all of you. We covered the anhydrous ammonia issue. I realize it's a great product. I feel like we should have some type of independent review on that, just like we sort of have on the quarry. We have some independent reviews, just to make sure that they're complying, especially when we have a couple non-compliant things now. We want to have some oversight, right? It makes sense. Sanitation and odors. There are no guarantees there will be no odors. They've done a lot of methods to help with that, but there's not going to be a guarantee. The applicant has not provided adequate sanitation related to the truck entering and leaving or during the unloading. There's a use of a PVC piping from the loading drain areas into the stormwater basin. The gentleman here from ESI says he would check on that. I believe that to be correct, but I would appreciate you checking that out. Traffic hours of operation from 1 a.m. to 1 p.m. are not consistent with the future residential area and will be a continuous noise complaint, as well as concern for diesel idling, more odors from exhaust fumes. And as I said, I get that from the Sam's Club, so I'm really aware of what that's all about. A truck every 45 minutes is what Jerry told me on the phone. There was a little bit different figure. I think it was a truck every hour to bring in the 500 head. then that does not include the other service trucks. So those truck numbers are not exactly the same as what was in the documents. Adequate measure will be taken to provide ingress and egress. We have a one-way, I wish the map was still up there, we have a one-way in and out cul-de-sac that is built beyond the allowable UDO ordinance of the city's length. The cul-de-sac length in the city of Franklin's maximum for safety is 800. I don't know what it is, but I know it's far beyond 800 feet with no other way in and out. So if there's an emergency, there's not another way in if that road gets blocked off for some reason. Let's say the ammonia does leak and it goes that direction. Well, you're going to drive through the plume? You know, can it meet the safety standards during the wind direction evacuation? I don't know that. Phase 1 is nearly a 4-acre building. I think we talked about that one. So then there are additional considerations, one of them being alternate locations. Alternate locations. I think that should be looked at. We have a new business park down by 27th and Elmwood with a new interchange. If we're worried about what user, I know we have Carmex is looking to move. We're gonna, if this all transpires, they leave, we end up with 2 empty business slots in our current business park. We're not really gaining that much when we lose 2 buildings, 2 property. You know, I guess you get a little more taxes because the building will be bigger. But we also spent the $9 million to help put in the water and sewer and the roads. So there are other considerations. I won't go through them all, but to vote approval, our job is to protect the community by verifying no undue adverse impact, meaning they need to prove there's no substantial or adverse or detrimental effect on the adjacent property owners or the area or the character, and we need to take into consideration the public safety, the public's health, the comfort, the general welfare, that it won't impair property values, which is a thing people had asked for in the agreement, and also the morals. I know that was discounted a lot, but I had almost a dozen people spoke on the morals of the concerns of this project. That is actually also part of our consideration. So I don't see that the community is convinced that this is answered. I have questions. I think we're moving a little too fast for how much this has been in front of us. A very large of the minority obviously do not want this in the city. That has been made very clear to me. And with Copart, pretty much a junkyard next to it, I talked to someone who said, well, Franklin will become the new old Cudahy. And that's not the future of the city. That when I voted on the master plan, that is not the future of the city that we had in mind when we put that master plan in place. I do have the language from the Payne and Dolan document. I also had some questions about sick codes, which don't seem to make up, but all qualified owners of record received by certified mail 2 letters describing the benefits and obligations of the Property Value Guarantee Program. One of the obligations of property owners wanting to participate in the program is returning their signed Property Value Guarantee Agreement due to us by October. 349 qualifying properties were notified as required by the Plan Development District requirements. 99 properties qualified for agreements with Vulcan, while 250 properties qualified with agreement with Payne and Dolan. That's quite a bit. And we're not even considering one property owner.
Alderwoman, 2 other aldermen would like to speak, and
I have now finished.
and we
but thank
will
you.
finish this agenda. Alderman Mayor.
I'll yield to the alderman of the district, and I'll come back to me if you want to go now or if you want to back clean up. It's up to you.
Alderman Nelson?
Thank you. One of the things I wish to put in my motion tonight was to simply quote something from our UDO. And I'm not going to read everything that the Alderwoman said, but she did touch on it. It says, "No undue adverse impact. The proposed use and development will not have a substantial or undue adverse or detrimental effect upon or endanger adjacent property, the character of the area, or the public health, safety, morals again, comfort, and general welfare, and not substantially diminish and impair property values within the community or neighborhood." That is a huge, huge deal that under the general standards part of this says no special use permit shall be recommended or granted pursuant to this ordinance unless the applicant shall establish, underlined, bolded, the following. That was one of the points. So with that, just a real simple question to Mr. Strauss. Thank you, gentlemen, again for coming in tonight. But have you exhausted, do you believe you've exhausted all the options at your current location for expansion possibilities and upgrades? And I'll leave it like that.
So I'll answer that question. So we did look into adding under our current facility because it would be a much cheaper option for us. So we spent a bit on engineering and looked at what it would cost to add what is necessary. And as you could see, the building is 4 acres in totality, which is what we need to meet our growth plans. And currently we sit on a 6-acre site. And a lot of that, a good portion of that 6 acres is actually designated wetlands. So it's part of Root River Parkway, and we wouldn't be able to build on it. So technically we would take up the entire land site with our building, and then we would have nowhere for the employees to park. So we vetted it, and it just wasn't a viable option.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. First off, there's been a lot of talk about you guys being a long-term business in Franklin. But to me personally, you gave that loyalty card away when you were playing with Milwaukee and pitting them against us. And there's no doubt in my mind that if Milwaukee would have taken you, you'd be thumbing your nose at us now. I also understand there were discussions early in Cudahy. You were talked about moving to Cudahy. Cudahy said no. Milwaukee said no, so you're back in Franklin. That being said, I really have not that much issue with your operations. I've been in your current building several times. You're successful because you're in a business park, an industrial park. You're not in a residential area. You're proposing to move to a residential area. And quite frankly, a lot of the things are concerns, but a lot of it is, it's just the wrong area. And there is no guarantee about odor. There's no guarantee about other things. I know you're doing the best you can. There's no guarantees. By the time these people find out it's not working, it's too late. You're there, and they're stuck with it. If you were going somewhere like the 27th Street Industrial Park, the new one, right next to the freeway for your traffic, and transporting on the freeway, not through a residential area, you're on a bus line, or you could be on a bus line on 27th Street. I think that would go a long way to alleviate Chief Remington's issues too with the fire department response, because you would have 2 full-time fire departments, Franklin and Oak Creek. You'd have all the assets of Milwaukee able to move in. You'd have the fire departments from down south able to get there in a much more rapid pace. But it's simply the wrong place to go. And now these citizens out here, they're going on 6 hours here, 5 hours here. You can tell that they care about this. We're jamming this major development down their throat. We heard the alderman was the first one to vote. This is his district. These are his people. But tomorrow they could be any one of our people, and it could be in any one of our district, and the rest of the council could jam it down our throats just like might happen tonight. And there's also a lame explanation going around that the alderman of the district can vote no so he doesn't get his constituents pissed off, Meanwhile, everybody else will vote yes and pass it quietly through, and everybody's happy. I don't think Alderman Nelson would lie to his constituents like that, and I don't think anybody up here would lie to their constituents like that. And anybody that would doesn't deserve to be sitting up here. So I think it's incumbent upon this council to stand up for District 6 citizens, just like they're your citizens, just like we would expect the rest of the council to stand up for our citizens. Stand up for those citizens. We already know what Alderman Nelson's vote's going to be. Stand up for him. It's in the wrong place. That's all. Thank you.
Well, no. You've been pretty good all night, okay? Except for that side of the room. Let's talk about wrong place for a minute. Alderwoman, you've talked all night. Give somebody else a
I
chance.
just said a question.
No, hold on. That's enough. You guys just can't get it through your heads. We got business to do tonight. We understand you don't want it. I get it.
So we're gonna do
But
it
you
anyway.
gotta listen to other people. Treat other people with respect. You're not. You are not. Officer, get him out. I want him out. That's enough. I'm serious. I am deadly serious. You particularly, Marcelino. Now let's talk about wrong spot, okay? The land price where they're at is very inexpensive, okay? 27th and Oakwood, probably 3 or 4 times the money. They don't need access to 94. Their traffic comes from the southwest. You heard it tonight. You saw it on the map, right? So if they were to buy on 27th and Oakwood, they're going to drive past all your houses to get to 27th and Oakwood. What did you tell us tonight you didn't want? You didn't want the traffic going past your houses. Think. Use your brains, right? You don't want traffic past your houses. Put them at 27th and Oakwood. They're going to drive past your houses to get to their plant. Yeah, it's just, you guys just, you're passionate about it. I get it. I understand. You don't want us to eat meat. I get it. No, sir, sorry, we're not taking it. I get it. I understand. You don't want this. I get it. But the 7 of us are supposed to detach ourselves from the emotion and do what's right for 36,000, not the people that are jumping up and down. We're supposed to give it some thought dispassionately and do what's right for 36,000. I talked about the tax benefit. I understand you're worried about your property values. I get it. I talk about being polite, and I get talked back. It's amazing to me, just amazing. I understand you're worried about odors. I get it. You don't know. Nobody knows that there won't be odors. But we got to believe that there won't because there isn't today. They're going to build a brand new building. You got to believe that the technology in a new building's better than one that's been added on 11 times. Doesn't that make sense? A reasonable person would say, makes sense. A new building. Alderwoman Wilhelm, I listened to you for 45 minutes.
I'm not slamming my fist on the counter.
You can afford to listen to me. I'm passionate about this. I heard from people from Chicago and San Francisco, all of them trying to tell me what was good for my community. I worked for you people since 1998. Marcelino, you've been here for 5 years. I think I know what's going on in this community.
No, that doesn't refer me. I mean, can I say because
No, you cannot, sir. It's my turn. I understand that you're passionate about this. I get it.
What?
I get it. Right? But we got to look at the facts, not what's going on in the emotions of all of this. Alderman Wilhelm gets a letter from the DNR. We've got letters from MMSD. Those are the people that really count. right? There's more work to be done. I get it. We got to do the work. Let's talk about assessed value guarantees. How do you do that? Down the street, you got 2 dumps. Who's making the smell? Is it Strauss? Is it the dump in Muskego? Or is it Waste Management? How are you going to prove that? How are you going to do that? Tell me, and I'll go negotiate it. That was rhetorical. You know, you got to think of these things instead of just standing up and saying, let's do it. Let's move them to 27th Street. Okay, we got a property value guarantee. Are we going to get one of those on 27th Street? Are we even going to find somebody to sell them the land on 27th Street? And who is going to work with Alderwoman Hanneman's constituents who are 1/10 of a mile away? And $500,000 houses in a subdivision, not one-off houses, a subdivision, and a hospital right there. Think about it, folks. This is in the middle of empty fields. No, it's not. It is absolutely in the middle of an empty field. The closest person is the Kennys. Believe me, I know. Not one of you, except for Tom, lives anywhere near this. So come on, don't give me this. I know. I get people from Greenfield telling me what I ought to do. You guys, you gotta be reasonable people, and you're not. You are not reasonable people. So that's my rant, okay? We got a motion on the floor. Okay, make it short, Alderman Willow, because we are getting through this agenda tonight.
Well, I'm hoping someone will consider, if you're going to go ahead and vote with this, I had a list of things that I thought you should probably include, unless you're just going to go with no conditions. You're just going to approve the special use without any conditions. There are concerns. I brought up several of them. I had a list of, the property values and, stuff like that, but I did. Well, I guess you have to ask Don Adams, because the MMSD bought his, or Waste Management bought his based on how long it had to be on the market. So there are ways to figure this out. We just don't want to take the time to do it. But, yeah, I have the floor. You're interrupting me. You tell me not to interrupt you. I'm speaking. So I guess you just got done telling all of these residents that don't worry about it. It's not going to bother anybody. But when we suggest to move it over to 27th Street, you start talking about all these residents over there that will be bothered by it. It doesn't go both ways. Yes, you interrupted me again. All right, I'm done because I can't have the floor long enough to finish my.
Madam Clerk.
Alderman Dandria.
Aye.
Alderman Mayor.
No.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
No.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
No.
Alderman Barber. Alderman Barber.
Yes.
Alderman Nelson.
No.
I said, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Okay, please. I get it, but don't do that, please, out of respect. So the motion fails, 4 noes, 2 ayes, and the motion fails.
This is what you did to me on Marquette Avenue. Okay, they're gonna be really disappointed.
I could entertain a motion to deny.
A second.
I think he has one.
A motion to deny should be supported by points, statements of substantial evidence in support thereof in relation to the standards set forth in section 15-3.0701 of the Unified Development Ordinance. And perhaps the method of doing that is to have Alderwoman Wilhelm restate her prior points in reference to the specific standards set forth therein.
Alderman Nelson should make this motion.
Just a question, if what you're stating, I have. So if I make the motion and you feel that it is incomplete, could then you advise on that? Because I believe it is very thorough and complete that would satisfy your request for a denial.
Well, my thought was that in addition to the standards, the Alderwoman was bringing up factual points, which
Sorry, put away.
at least some that I made notes on were not mere personal preference.
I could bring forth two with my motion.
Alderman Nelson has the floor.
Okay, my motion to deny the special use application submitted by Strauss Brands LLC to construct a meat packing plant in the M1 zoning district. Criteria for denial: failure to comply with the general standards required by the UDO for granting a special use exception for this development. Under Division 15-3.070001, Special Use Standards and Regulations. General standards: no special use permit shall be recommended or granted pursuant to this ordinance unless the applicant shall establish the following. And I will read two verbatim, which I read one of them earlier, so. No undue adverse impact. The proposed use and development will not have a substantial or undue adverse or detrimental effect upon or endanger adjacent property, the character of the area, or the public health, safety, morals, comfort, and general welfare, and not substantially diminish and impair property values within the community or neighborhood. Okay? I'm going to read one more. No interference with surrounding development. The proposed use and development will be constructed, arranged, and operated so as to not to dominate the immediate vicinity or to interfere with the use and development of neighboring property in accordance with the applicable zoning district regulations. Motion.
First of all, earlier in the motion, I believe you stated special uses exceptions, and it's not an exception, it's a special use permission approval. So that should just be corrected technically. And the subject motion include substantial evidence other than merely personal preferences or speculation directly pertaining to those requirements and conditions that reasonable persons would accept. I think you'd want to put some statements of facts in support of those particular standard provisions that were set forth at the public hearing or by council members.
I didn't write it for him, Mayor Olson.
For the record, Mayor Olson is accusing Alderwoman Wilhelm of writing my motion. That is not true. She did not have any input or guidance in this motion, and I will now yield the floor to her.
Mayor Olson, can I have the floor? I guess I'd consider making amendment to the motion to include adequate public facilities for police and fire protection, and I'd submit into the record the police report and the fire chief's letter with that. I'd also submit that the consistent with the, and in harmony with the city's master plan, and put in the zoning, master plan zoning map, which shows that we actually rezoned it to make it happen. You wanted substantial evidence. Mayor, city attorney would like to speak.
The city planning manager was looking at me when you first mentioned the city's master plan. I don't recall a rezoning ever taking place that was inconsistent with the master plan since, the decade plus change in the smart growth legislation 2 decades ago occurred. So why would the current zoning be inconsistent with the master plan?
Well, the current master plan shows it to be business, which was why I said the water study plan is supposed to be consistent with the master plan. And we changed the master plan, and there's now the water study is supposed to be adopted by the DNR. And how can it be consistent with the master plan if you change the master plan? So something has to give here, because you can't have it all. The other additional considerations in our alternative locations, that has not been looked into.
How about letting the planning manager answer the question? Mr. Planning Manager.
I need a better handle on what the question is. The council at some point changed the zoning down here to M1, which at the time of the approval was consistent with the business park designation in the comprehensive master plan. So now you've gone from saying it was consistent with the comprehensive master plan to saying it isn't. But that would have been with respect to the rezoning application, which was completed, I don't know when, before I got here. So I don't know how that is somehow being conflated with something that Strauss is doing. Strauss is simply implementing the zoning that was approved by the Common Council. So to suggest that this is somehow inconsistent is not quite factually correct. If the water study is inconsistent with the comprehensive master plan, that's a problem that you needed to resolve at the time the water study was being done. And that, again, has nothing to do with the M1 zoning or the special use application before you tonight. Those are separate issues that staff has to work through in the course of our review of these applications. But they aren't related to anything that would be considered an inconsistency or something that Strauss failed to account for. Strauss is simply implementing the zoning that's at hand, subject to approval by the council.
Okay. I did mention the police and fire. That seems fairly valid, since we have the information at hand. and the strain it will put on those services. Additional considerations is an alternative location, that's clearly one. Public benefit, the necessity and desirable interest of the public, or what it contributes to the general welfare of the neighborhood or the community. The desire of interest of the public is not there, and they didn't prove, it's their job to prove it was a public benefit. If we say we weren't convinced that they prove it's a public benefit, that's our opinion. That's subjective. So, it doesn't say you need 30 reasons. It just says you need to go through the special use and give a reason. So I gave you at least 3. And I still believe that this use is going to create a cascading of rezoning to accommodate that. So I don't think the use, the special use, is consistent with the master plan. And I did want to have the time to look up the SIC codes, because the SIC codes in the UDO don't even cover slaughtering. And the new SIC codes have been replaced by the new code. The new code covers slaughtering. If you look at our old ordinance, slaughtering or meat processing was a special use. Slaughtering wasn't even in there, so I don't even know how they got the slaughtering from the first special use, because that was never even in there. And then you go to the new ordinance, it's still not in there, and then meat processing is not even an allowable use, so that was a huge change. So somebody deliberately made it a special use and still didn't add slaughtering. And you go 2 lines down, and it says poultry slaughtering. Well, if they can talk about poultry slaughtering, why aren't they talking about meat slaughtering when they talk about meat processing? I don't think there isn't ever a SIC code that allows slaughtering for meat in our ordinance. And I think that should be investigated. So I think you should go with some of the uses. And maybe look into that SIC code issue, because that'll give you one more.
Do you want me to address that? The table of uses for non-residential districts is 37 pages long. It covers literally every single SIC code in the 1987 Standard Industrial Classification Manual. Literally, slaughtering is in there.
Not for me.
It is. Every single classification involving an industrial activity is addressed in the SIC manual. If you don't read it, it's because it's probably not something that you're thinking about directly.
Well, we can sit down and talk about that later.
Staff does our level best to try and figure out what these uses are. We constantly wrestle with, what do we even call them? Because some of these uses, they border the line between uses that are either covered as permitted uses versus ones that are listed under each district as a special use versus ones that aren't listed at all. Part of my impetus for reforming the UDO is in part because having a 37-page table of all of the SIC code uses is so overwrought and difficult for staff to even implement that it becomes very difficult for us to actually get to the heart of the matter, which is a use appropriate for a location in that district, in that place? And it's very difficult to do this when we're too busy hovering around in the mud over SIC code numbers. I would rather we didn't use those at all. I can tell you that there are a lot of jurisdictions that don't use SIC codes because they're frankly overwrought and way too complicated. Every single definition for uses is not even in the UDO. You have to go actually pick up the 1987 SIC manual to get a definition for what those categories are. It's not even in the ordinance. Our ordinance is over 600 pages long. It's absurdly difficult to navigate. And these uses are absurdly complicated and overly striated so that it's almost impossible to differentiate between one type of use and another type of use unless you can get down to the very, very small details about what they do. Some of which is probably unnecessary in some cases, maybe not in other cases, like tonight. But certainly in some cases, differentiating between different types of uses is, it approaches absurdity. That being said, I do know that meatpacking plants does include some level of processing, and that's probably the word that's used in the SIC manual. And that's probably why it doesn't necessarily say the word slaughter, even if that's is generally the intent. It's taking a live animal and turning it into something processed. That's what a meatpacking plant ultimately does.
So based, at least what's been provided on the record by the alderpersons, if that get Alderwoman Wilhelm's statements on the record become incorporated, staff would suggest that not include the references to the comprehensive master plan being inconsistent and the references she made to the SIC code. And the planning manager is nodding his head in the affirmative.
SIC code 2011 is meatpacking plants. Establishments primarily engaged in the slaughtering for their own account or on the contract basis for the trade of cattle, hogs, sheep, lambs, and calves.
Is that our ordinance or someone else's ordinance? Because they're all different.
No, that's, okay, you know better, but it's the SIC code. If you want to go to the NAICS.
That's the one, yeah,
Then it's 31161.
right, and it breaks it down into categories.
But meatpacking plants is the old SIC code that is the umbrella, and it's 2011.
Page 3-80.
We're not including it anyway. So,
You can include anything you want.
well, he
Where are
said
we
not
at?
to include it, so we don't even need to bring it up. We can move on.
Mr. City Attorney.
So there's been no formal motion with all terms and provisions completed. There's been no second. And
No, there was a second. I think he seconded.
Okay, well, also, just a fleeting thought, and this was mentioned by a number of the people in the room this evening. Perhaps some thought may be given in lieu of a motion to deny to further review and study, assuming that there's not some process time limit pending that the applicant would not consent to extending. Just a thought.
We just had so many people be so happy on what we did. Most of them have left the room and gone home. And now we're going to do some kind of reversal. I'm not comfortable with that at all. So he had the points in the special use. We are directing our concerns about the special use. If the presentations, and many of these people we hear for both the public hearing and this, and if the people in the audience had concerns that were not satisfied with odor, safety, cost, morals, traffic, COVID, law, process, environment, timing, outdated business, complaints, location, jobs, property values, water quality, those were just some of the categories that the people in the audience were convinced, but we're all convinced. So I would think that we could have the city attorney craft the motion that the council has supported so far. I've seen him, I've been up here for 20 years watching this guy put together something. He can do it. And now the mayor's saying we should table it. There's a motion on the floor. We've given the points, put the points in, and make a vote. You can even throw in traffic if you wanted to. There's been no traffic study, so they haven't proved, if they haven't done a traffic study, there's no proof that it's not going to be a problem on a cul-de-sac that's over the length of the ordinance on a one-way in and out. Throw traffic in there. We should have traffic adequate public facilities. Alternate locations under additional considerations. You only need to have a little bit. You don't have to name everything. There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. There's
Care to read your motion again, Alderman Nelson?
Well, it doesn't have all the added conditions.
Well, we need to have clear, concise motion and conditions, right? So that it can go on the record, so that everybody knows what they're voting.
Well, he had the conditions, and then I suggested the amount.
It wasn't amended.
I know, I make the motion to amend the main motion to insert the following special use permit or special use conditions that have not been met. Additional considerations, alternative locations, adequate public facilities, essential public services have not been provided. And traffic circulation due to no traffic study. I'm gonna second that.
Alderman Nelson.
Mr. City Attorney, is that sufficient, or I've got 7 points that are right out of the UDO that I can go verbatim on and read them in?
If it includes the specific fact statements related to each of those points that Alderwoman Wilhelm stated earlier on the record.
Is what she added now satisfy the motion?
It's more generalized than what she said earlier, which I had asked for a repeating of.
Well, maybe we should listen to the recording and you can take it from there because it's on the record already. Mayor? I think the main motion and the documents have been read. The points have been made. If you want me to read them in full. Adequate public facilities. Our vote depends on the proof of development is adequately served by essential public services, including public water supply, police and fire protection, or the applicant will provide for such services. No such services or proof has been provided. Traffic hours of operation. Traffic circulation hours from 1 a.m. to 1 p.m. are not consistent with the future residential area and will be a continuous noise complaint, as well as concerns for diesel idling, more odors from exhaust fumes. Adequate measure will be taken to provide ingress and egress. The one-way in and out is far beyond allowable UDO cul-de-sac length of 800 feet. Additional considerations. Alternative locations, whether the goals can be met at another site that may be more appropriate, with the consideration of 27th near I-94.
And you did bring up the police report and fire
And
chief's letter.
including in the, and adding in for the record, the police report and the fire chief's letter.
Okay, I don't know what you're gonna vote on, but there seems to be some form of a motion.
Are you good with that, sir?
I think, well, I made the amendment, somebody needs to second my amendment.
Second.
Okay, on whatever amendment that is, Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
This is on the amendment to the motion.
Correct.
Alderman Nelson.
Aye.
Alderman Barber. Alderman Hanneman.
No.
Alderman Wilhelm.
Aye.
Alderman
Or,
Mayor.
wait, we're voting
On the amendments.
on the amendment, aye, yes. Make sure, she kind of threw me with her no
Voted
vote.
no?
Pardon?
You voted no.
I voted no. I'm against the particular,
All,
of some of the particulars of the amendment.
Let's start over again.
Alderman Nelson.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
No.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
No.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Aye.
Alderman Mayor.
Aye.
Alderman Dandria.
No.
3-3.
It'll be good to have such a confusing document. Mayor votes aye. It'll be fun. On the amendment.
Okay.
Okay,
Mayor, before we move on, I guess I'd like to know what Alderwoman Hanneman doesn't like about the conditions
it's not
because.
appropriate. You've Never,
What?
you're not
We-
permitted to ask why an alderman made the vote that they made. On the
Well-
main motion, Madam Clerk, call the roll. I don't think anybody's got it written down.
Maybe Alderman Nelson. Everybody has a piece of paper that they're looking at but me.
Alderman Nelson, care to read the motion
With those,
with the conditions that were just read? Or just, we just added
Oh, he
the
had a
conditions
meeting.
to
I don't
his
know what he
motion.
made a motion to do.
So if you're asking me to reread my motion with the 2 points of the 6 that are on here, I'll read them because then the Alderwoman added the other points that are partial to this.
read the whole thing, whatever.
You gotta read whatever it was that you did the first time.
Well, okay, I'll read what I put the first time. To deny the special use application submitted by Strauss Brands LLC to construct a meat packing plant in the M1 zoning district. Criteria for denial: failure to comply with the general standards required by the UDO for granting a special use exception for this development. Division 15-3.0700, special use standards and regulations. General standards: no special use permit shall be recommended or granted pursuant to this ordinance unless the applicant shall establish the following. And then I listed the number 2, which is no undue adverse impact. The proposed use and development will not have a substantial or undue adverse or detrimental effect upon or endanger adjacent property, the character of the area, or the public health, safety, morals, comfort, and general welfare, and not substantially diminish and impair property values within the community or neighborhood. Next point: no interference with surrounding development. The proposed use and development will be considered will be constructed, arranged, and operated so as not to dominate the immediate vicinity or to interfere with the use and development of neighboring property in accordance with the applicable zoning district regulations.
And then the amendment.
And the amendment presented by Alderman Wilhelm.
Okay. When you're ready.
Roll call.
On the main motion, Madam Clerk,
As amended.
as amended, yes.
Alderman Dandria.
No.
Alderman Mayor.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
No.
Alderman Barber.
No.
Alderman Nelson.
Aye.
Mayor votes no.
Mayor?
Alderwoman, well,
I can only guess what Alderwoman Hanneman's concern was. Maybe it was the 27th Street. It would only seem right that if she could express her concerns, because we had her support on the other one. I know I can't make her or force her, but it would be appropriate for the audience to know what condition that I put in that she was not comfortable with, and I would be happy to remove that.
that request is way out of line.
She,
Alderman Dandria.
I'd like to make a motion to table, and let's bring this back to staff. You've heard all the issues that some of the older persons have. It gives the company an opportunity to work on those items in more detail. That's my motion.
A date certain?
Yeah, date certain. Gosh, if there's no time frame here, let's go to that first meeting in January. So that January 2021, that gives you 2 months. Is that a sufficient time frame for you guys?
Yeah, it's more than enough time.
Is there a second?
Applicant consent to,
Yes, they just did.
I didn't hear it on the record.
Yes, so we consent to table to January of 2021.
I didn't hear a second to the motion yet.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion to table to January. You'll all not comment, please. The first meeting in January would be the 5th, would it not?
That would be correct, because we will be closed.
5th. Alderman Wilhelm.
I'm just shocked that it went through Plan Commission like that, and we get here, now all of a sudden, we're really willing to give it time because we can't stir up the votes. So all we're doing is delaying this to put more pressure on. I can't tell you how I have been bullied and threatened to get my vote, and I've stood strong with you, and it's not going to end though. So,
If I have to come here to the end of time so that I get as much time as these gentlemen did, then I will. I'll be here at every meeting until you hear me.
We're not going anywhere, so.
Officer. Okay, on the motion to table, after the great
How about the
grandstand,
second meeting in January?
That's fine.
just wait.
second, okay? Second meeting? Yes. Which would be the 19th. All those in favor of the table to the 19th, let's do a roll call.
Alderman Nelson.
No.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
No.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
No.
Alderman Mayor.
No.
Alderman Dandria.
Aye.
What is that? That's 4 ayes and 2 noes, motion fails. Is there no-
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Of course.
I'd like to make his exact motion without the amendments.
Second.
Okay.
Ready?
You ready?
Alderman Dandria.
No.
Alderman Mayor.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
No.
Alderman Nelson.
Aye.
That motion carries.
Now it's over.
And I would like to know, Alderman Wilhelm, who bullied you?
Oh,
You guys are so wrong.
it's not over yet.
You guys are so wrong. 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 Okay, item G3. It's a motion to adopt resolution authorizing certain officials to conservation easement as part of approval for certified survey map for Biller. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in
Question.
favor?
Uh-oh.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Question,
Aye.
All those in favor?
question,
All those in favor?
question.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I didn't say yes.
G4,
I'm abstaining from that because I could not get my question
Motion.
answered.
motion carries, 5 ayes, 1 no-nos, 1 abstention. G4, proposed budget timeline. Any issues with the timeline? G5, a resolution for acquisition of property for public park located at 8100 block of the east side of South Lovers Lane Road.
Move to approve.
For the record, I was the one that said, take it or leave it. All those in favor? This is
Aye.
financial offer. Let's do a roll call on this one. Because it is subject of controversy for no reason.
Alderman Nelson.
Aye.
Alderman Barber. Aye. Alderwoman Hanneman.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Aye.
Alderman Mayor.
Aye.
Alderman Dandria.
Aye.
6 ayes, no noes, no abstentions, motion carries. G6 is extension of the contract with EMS Medical Billing Associates for EMS billing.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. G7 is an ordinance to amend ordinance 2019-2398, adopting the 2019 budget. This is for equipment replacement fund to provide appropriations for a new vehicle for inspection services, $30,168. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Paul. Madam
Excellent.
Clerk.
My computer just went out. Alderman, no, I'm fine. Alderman Nelson.
Aye.
Alderman Barber. Aye. Alderwoman Hanneman.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Aye.
Alderman Mayor.
Aye.
Alderman Dandria.
Aye.
Motion carries, 6 ayes, no noes, no absence, no abstentions. G8 is authorization to purchase 2 HP backup servers, $18,969 out of the capital outlay budget.
So moved.
Second.
Come on, you gotta have the servers. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. G9 is purchase of Windows Office and Bitdefender licenses. This is CARES Act money. $11,289.48.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. G10 is a recommendation for a 2021 health reimbursement arrangement, and health savings account administration services.
Move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Alderman Nelson.
Peggy, are you good with this?
Yes, this is our recommendation. We recommended it to the Personnel Committee last evening, and they did unanimously approve it. There's just one clarification that we're making, but if any changes happen, we will come back with a request to change. This is the lowest responsible vendor.
Thank you.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. What the hell is that? G11, authorization to execute, what is it? Mr. City Attorney.
Pursuant to the direction of the Common Council previously provided, the drafts, while still requiring some minor technical changes, at least the development agreement itself, and the public improvements, correct? Mr. City Engineer, he's nodding his head yes, are consistent with the direction of the council, excepting for the main development agreement with the public improvements installation payment of $2,500,000. The only change of some substance to that was in the event the public improvements upon completion and installation for dedication to the city, cost is actually less than 2.5 million, that lesser amount would be granted to the developer. So staff has no concerns with that. Staff is recommending the motion set forth on the action sheet to adopt the resolution approving the agreement, subject to any minor technical changes, I believe, as stated therein, as approved by the city engineer and city attorney. So that's staff recommendation.
I'll make the motion.
Well, we got a whole bunch of them here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's on page 176, second from the top. Well, I did reference it.
We need one open, Sean.
And for COVID, I think we need them both open.
Okay, good. I move to adopt a resolution authorizing certain officials to execute a tax incremental district number 8 development agreement and a development agreement for tax incremental district 8 related public improvements between the city of Franklin, JHB Properties LLC, and ZS Enterprises LLC, spec and/or commercial buildings mixed-use development.
Question,
Alderman Wilhelm,
does this say a spec building?
correct?
Yes.
Do we have a user?
Nope.
We're sure we don't have a user. We're not gonna have another Copart Strauss thing.
We do not have a user.
The alderman is unaware, if there is.
We do not have a user.
Do not have a user.
I'm suspicious.
Do we have a second on that?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Any opposed? Motion carries. H1 licenses, Alderman Nelson.
Right. So we've got the first page, page 1, all approved except the last one, Holterman, hold for appearance. Page 2, approved.
Is there a second?
I didn't read it.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I-1 vouchers. Is there a motion approving the following city vouchers on any day of October 15th, 2020? The amount of $1,044,190.91 in payroll dated October 9th, 2020. The amount of $405,916.90 in payments of various payroll deductions. The amount of $235,147.95 plus city matching payments and estimated payroll dated October 20th. Estimated at $419,000 in payments of the various payroll deductions. Estimated at $455,000 plus city matching payments and property tax disbursements of $618.18, and approval to release payment to Ray Stadler Construction, $64,668.
So moved.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Alderman Dandria.
Aye.
Alderman Mayor.
Aye.
Alderwoman Wilhelm.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hanneman.
Aye.
Alderman Barber.
Aye.
Alderman Nelson.
Aye.
Motion carries, 6 ayes, no noes, no absent, no abstentions. Is there a motion to enter closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Stat 19851 sub C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of a public employee over which the governing body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility in Wisconsin Stat 19851 sub 1F, considering financial, medical, social, or personnel histories or disciplinary data of specific persons, preliminary consideration of specific personnel problems, or the investigation of charges against specific persons, except where paragraph B applies, which, if discussed in public, would likely to have substantial adverse effects upon the reputation of persons referred to in such histories or data, or involved in such problems or investigations, to strategize on how to address employee complaint and re-enter open session at the same place thereafter to act on such matters as discussed therein as it deems appropriate.
So move.
Second.
Madam Clerk?
Nelson.
Aye.
Barber.
Aye.
Hanneman.
Aye.
Wilhelm. Mayor.
Aye.
Dandria.
We're in closed session. Staff is dismissed except for Peggy.